Welcome back, everyone, to Lesser Known Operators. My guest this week is Bob DePrato, a retired Chief Warrant Officer from 1st Special Forces Group. He currently resides in Austin, Texas, and is a new performing artist, having his first solo release, Veritas. And if you're watching at home, there is the album cover if you want to check it out. 3 songs on that release, so go to wherever you listen to your music and give him a follow, give him a listen. Give him a little support. I will have links to all of his socials and where you can find his music in the show description. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Welcome back, everyone, to Lesser Known Operators. My guest this week is Bob DePrato. Is that how you say it, Bob?
Yeah, Bob DePrato. That's right.
DePrato. He was a Green Beret, retired as a Chief Warrant Officer 3 after 21 years of service, I believe.
Yeah, 20 years and 4 months, so I didn't quite hit 21, but
After one day, you just round up to the next one.
I did.
You get
Every day after
current
20, like worth like 10 days,
20 years is a long time. That's a lot of people do that for murder. So
And for whatever it's worth, not that you could compare the two, but I have a friend I met out here in Austin who's he did 10 years in prison, and he's kind of, reformed, he's found God again, and he's kind of on his path. But we share a lot of similarities as far as kind of transitioning back into regular civilian life outside, basically. Us in special forces, we're in a very niche environment. We don't go outside of that a whole lot. So, in a weird way, you can share some of the same things that people have when they leave cults or gangs or even, prison. Um, the stories really resonate sometimes with folks, and you have a lot of things in common, basically.
well, that fits into what I say about the military, right? The military is not on planet Earth. It's on a separate planet. You enlist and then you go to a faraway place that has different rules and different laws, and the stuff that you got in trouble before, you won't get in trouble for now, but there's new stuff, like not shaving, that you can get really in trouble for. So it's a weird dichotomy of transfer. Yeah, so I get that. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities to prison, which sounds like a red flag, but we do it anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly. But insofar as, after doing 20 years, in the military, the transition piece has been a very interesting one. I've been a civilian for just a little less than a year now, or at least been retired. And, I've moved to a new place and started a new life. And and I'm transitioning, my whole mindset and everything at the same time, because you're very conditioned after 20 years, in the special forces, especially, but anywhere in the military for that matter. You're very conditioned, and it can be hard to leave that environment and that structure and to just go be free on your own. It's like, that's all you wanted when you're in the military, is just some time and space for yourself. And now you have all of it in the world. What are you going to do? you know?
Yeah, it's too much freedom all at once, right? Because you have somebody telling them what to do, and then you have other people that you have to tell what to do every day. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden that's completely over. And you just walk out of that base, you've got your DD 214, you got your retirement certificate that you're going to hang up on the wall. And there's nothing anymore. There's nobody telling you what to do. You're the boss, and you haven't been the boss in a long time. Sure, you were in leadership roles, but you never
Mhm.
had to tell yourself really the mission. It kind of got pushed down, and it was part of a team. So now it's a team of one. Why do you think so many guys have trouble with that?
Um, community. Community of like-minded individuals is important. And you get it in the military, but very specifically, my experience in, special operations, mine specifically was in Army Special Forces. We're assessed and selected based off of certain criteria. And that certain criteria, which would cause a lot of us to normally like avoid each other in normal life, has now caused where we're forced to be together and to suffer together, basically. And in one way or another, it's suffering. I mean, guys might like kind of laugh about it, or say, hey, this is easier, or make light of it. That's kind of what we do. We develop a culture of getting through it. But at the end of the day, it's really about the ability to suffer, as a team or together with your teammates. Being a good teammate means you will suffer through all the shit you don't want to do for your team and for the mission, basically. But let's be honest, it's team first always. I mean, you care more about your boys than the mission. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, because I mean, if we think that there's a big safety issue, depending on how important the mission is, we can always abort a mission. We can't bring our friends back, So in a way that it's really more about the people to your left and right than it is about almost anything else. And when you leave, sometimes since that there's not a forcing function to bring all of you together, and because some of us in special ops are the types where, like I said, if we weren't forced to be together, we probably just wouldn't be. You know what I mean? And so we don't get out and find each other and network and build businesses together and build community together. Like we don't always do that. There's little pockets of it, especially outside of Bragg and outside of Tampa. There's little pockets of it here in Texas, but it's not everywhere, basically.
Yeah, you get out and you're spread out along the country. The team life is gone, and you start kind of, because the last thing in your mind when you walk out is like, I was a quiet professional. And that is an attitude that needs to kind of go away once you leave base, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're not making any noise on the civilian side, nobody's going to hear you. And we'll get into that. But also, if you're not reaching out and establishing contact with you guys anymore, they're just going to fade away. They're going to forget about you, and you're going to be even more isolated. So it is that, that team environment, but that's partly on us. We got to keep doing things, because you got to work hard all the time.
Yes.
If you're not improving your foxhole, you're making it worse, right?
Yeah.
And that's our job as veterans, is to keep improving the position even after we're done. And guys fall into that easy cycle of, "Oh, I'll just do it tomorrow," or I don't have to reach out today. And then all of a sudden a year goes by, and then you lose track of what you were trying to accomplish when you got out, and now you've lost a whole year. But I think the question that everybody's asking is, Green Beret, that's pretty easy, but how hard is getting up and singing original music in front of people you don't know?
Dude, the hardest thing for me to do is to get up there and sing. And but by the way, because of that, when I do it and it goes well and people are happy, man, like it is very rewarding. I'll say that. If people enjoy your music, it's very rewarding, you know. And I'm writing these songs as well, so I'm not just singing them. But no kidding, man. Getting up in front of a live audience, live, it is nerve wracking. It reminds me a bit of a mission, to be honest. That little, feeling you had before you went on the mission. Scared doesn't classify it. That's not right. No, is it nervous? I don't know if I was nervous before. Definitely something. Your nerves are up. You're acutely aware. All of your senses are heightened. And for some reason, I only feel that during either intense exercises or through music. I have a hard time since I've retired replicating that particular feeling, and it goes along with the community aspect, is where, like, the team. When there's you get out, you got to create your own team. I understand, but it's not always easy for everybody. And so for me, yeah, through the music and through diet and exercise is how I have basically come a long way with my treatment for combat PTSD, which is
Okay.
what I med boarded for when I retired.
So you were medically retired?
Yeah, I should
That's the way
explain.
to
Yeah,
go.
I was
That's
med
the way to
boarded.
go. You're all done.
A lot of people don't know that, but it's like if you're at 20, I mean, not that you can just choose, but if you are truly, in a bad position, if your health's bad, you can choose to med board. Um, assuming that you have the conditions, which I did. So MedBoard was beneficial for me. It helped me with my transition because basically I wasn't I was in a medical unit and, going to my appointments and working on my transition, as opposed to like staying in the office until the very last day, which, the Army will take, every last minute of your time if you let them, all the way up until the last day you sign out. So, in this particular case, it gave me a little space to work on me and to begin my healing and rediscovery of not only myself but my faith and when I say healing, I mean, so not just in a spiritual manner, I mean, so very much physically, man, honestly, my back and a lot of things, I'd taken a lot of punishment over the years, and I almost didn't know how bad it was until I got out for a little while. My nervous system was just firing all the time. I mean, that was the main problem with my particular symptoms of PTSD was basically my nervous system would just fire. It's just in fight or flight mode all the time. And that pays a heavy toll on your body, basically. It begins to mess with your blood pressure, begins to mess with your sleep patterns, begins to really mess with your digestive health. I was having tons of stomach issues. And you'll find a lot of guys that, let's say did, 3, 4, 5 years or more, in special ops. I find almost all of them have high blood pressure, sleep problems, and digestive issues. It's like, how does like almost every single one of them, man? And it's like, that's strange. I mean, it's clearly a pattern, and they're starting to come up with things that they're calling like operator syndrome and stuff. But the truth is, I don't think that they truly understand what doing years upon years of like special ops or even some of the elite first responders, like what you're asking your body and your nervous system to do for a long period of time. I don't think we fully understand what that does to your basically your nervous system, but your body and your mind overall. So it's taken me a long time to not only kind of treat my PTSD, my trauma, but to kind of slow that nervous system down. Try to, I had to kind of change the way I work out. I don't lift quite as heavy as often anymore. I do a little more yoga, a little more Pilates, a little more mobility stuff. All of this plays a pivotal role. And, just some of it's just a sign of aging, right? I'm turning 41 in a couple of weeks. I did 20, plus years in special ops. So some of it's just aging, and I need to, slightly modify certain things, like, for instance, we can't drink the way we did, some of us back when we were, with the teams, man. It was work hard, play hard on a lot of teams. Let's be honest.
All
And,
the time. Yeah.
we could throw them back in those days. So it's just about kind of adjusting, and my adjustment on this, on the outside here, has gone very well. It started very rough. I had a kind of a rough transition. I'll go more into it, but finally getting to a place now where I'm like, man, yeah, this is it. This is what, retirement should feel like. Now I feel like I can start fresh, start something new. And just so happens I released my first album. Just circle it all the way back. But all of this explains a lot about the album because one of my favorite songs I've ever written is on this album. Fighting Man, for instance, talks a lot about basically that military transition, the experience over there, and then coming back and the war's ending. The chorus goes, "You can take a man out of the fight, but you can't take the fight out of a man." And it just kind of, it's supposed to kind of symbolize us that are struggling a little bit. Some of us who have struggled after our military service. And you don't have to have gone to combat or been blown up or something to struggle from your military service. When I was going through some of my treatments, like there was very few actual, special operators in there because, like I said, we're really good at suffering. And so we just do that, on the outside too. We just like suffer, keep rucking. I'm not going to get help, until it's almost too late. But there's trauma and stuff that happens throughout the military, and just doing a significant amount of time in the military and then getting out can be pretty traumatic enough. But it was especially meant, to be honest, for those that served during the time I did, in which we were going to Iraq and Afghanistan all the time. You know what I mean? If you were in, I came into first group in 05 and left in 23, I think. And during that time, I did 5 combat deployments, but I can't, the amount of other ones that I did in between that were just to Asia for training missions, or, doing some, counter narcotics mission in the Philippines, or advisory missions, or, we did Secret Service augmentation missions all over the place where we augmented the Secret Service for, presidential visits. Famously, one of the ones I was a part of was the one where Trump went over there and crossed the border into North Korea, which was a pretty wild one to be a part of. But basically, the transition afterwards, those that kind of struggled. There's so many deployments. Basically, is what I was getting at, back to back to back to back to back to back. A lot of families suffered. honestly, I got divorced by the end of it. I mean, a lot of people got multiple divorces. It's just a hard life is kind of the point. And so my heart always kind of goes out to those that get out. And, I've got a lot of friends that, like lost their wife and kids. They don't have the army anymore. And, they just can't see how they can go on basically. And, um, I hope that the song and then this album really, and that the message that I'm portraying is that there is hope. Um, doesn't look like it right now, but one little step at a time. In my case, like I said, something simple like focus on my music and my diet and exercise. And hey, I'm not saying I'm up at the top. Now everyone look at me. I'm the example to follow. I'm just saying, hey, in a short amount of time, I've come a long way. I feel really good. My body's healing, and that's all giving me more hope and momentum to keep going.
You gotta, if that's the thing, right? On a team, the individual has to be squared away for the team to
Yeah.
succeed, right? So if you don't have yourself, then you can't contribute any success or help to anybody else. If you're not helping yourself and making yourself the best version that you can be, and that comes with little steps, right? Oh, I want to be a musician. Okay, now I got some songs. Let me release those songs, and then let me just show people what I'm doing, what works for me, and all those other things, and just try to be an example, but always working on yourself. Because if you're fucked up and then you try and help somebody else that's fucked up, you're just gonna be still two fucked up people, just
Yeah.
floundering around, and then you start, drinking too much or making bad decisions or trying to torpedo your life. And that's right? When we're in, it's a very stressful life
Yeah.
in the team and in group. Even when you're on staff and shit, you'll be going all over the place and doing stuff.
That was the
So,
most
it,
stressful time for me.
oh yeah,
You
you
imagine
get off.
that? Wars and the teams and all that. That was all fun, to be honest. It was the end there when I was on the staff where honestly it all came down on me. I mean, maybe I was just having my midlife crisis, but I felt like the staff was the most stressful place to be, to be honest.
There's a lot of eyes on you, right? When you're behind the team room door, nobody can see you. You're protected by the team
You're
and
dicking around
on
with
the
your
B
friends,
team.
having fun. Let's be honest,
Yeah,
dude. It's fun.
yeah.
You're with your boys.
But the closer you get to the flagpole, the more people, are looking at you with more rank, and they're more judgy, and it's a more, I don't know, it seems like it's a more office competitive environment, really, once you get out of the operational environment, out of the companies anyway. But you said first group, so '05 to
Yep.
23. I was there 15 to 18, I guess,
You
in
were
3rd
third
Battalion.
battalion.
3rd Battalion and 2nd. But when I was in 2nd, I was in Korea, and then I was 3rd Battalion S3 or Taskings NCO when I got out in 18. So a short duration in 1st Battalion. But I saw you had commented on a couple first group posts, so I assumed you were
Yeah. Oh,
first
cool.
group.
Yeah, man. I 9/11 happened my senior year. Let me tell you this. Actually, I was just telling someone else the story. Funny enough, like where you eat your words in life. My end of my junior year, I think I don't know how it came up. My dad said, "You ever thought about joining the Marines?" Because he was a Marine, and I was like, "I never." Yeah, by the way, I was a punk kid in California, so just I thought I was like I was like athlete and a skater kid and this and that. So and I wasn't very informed. So I go, "Oh no, wait, Dad, there's no way I would serve in the military and go fight, for the big machine or whatever, this and that." I thought I was like cool.
But that's pre 9/11, right?
That's pre 9/11. A couple of months go by, 9/11 happens. I'm not saying I was at the recruiter's office the next day, but it happened my senior year, and it was like pretty impactful on a lot of our lives, right? Like school stopped, like literally. My dad, we have family back there. My dad and I flew back and, saw it, like went to ground zero. And I mean, they were pulling out fireman helmets and children's shoes. And there was this mural of like little pieces of paper from all over the world, like from kids from like Italy and Japan and South America and everywhere that had drawn like God bless USA or like, whatever, like nice little things. And, because there were firemen working around the clock, obviously cleaning up all this stuff. I mean, there's a big hole in the ground and they're pulling out, you know, but you literally watch them pull out debris and like you realize some of this was on the humans that were inside of there. It was like, wow, my senior year, I'm thinking like, that was pretty impactful. I'm like, huh. And, at this time, I think all I'm going to do in life is be a professional baseball player or a musician. You know, I was either be a guitar player or a professional baseball player. Those are my two options. So after I graduated my senior year, I just got the bug. I just felt the calling. I'll just say that. It seemed like everywhere I went, it would be another army thing. My cousin joined the army. The movie that was on would be an army movie. I mean, I know it sounds funny, but I'm that way. I feel like sometimes when you're getting signs, but it's just everything's pointing that way. And then, so yeah, me and my buddy were talking about joining, and we were both athletes and young, and I joined, and he didn't. He went and played college football. But uh, dude, I did the 18 X-ray contract. If folks don't know what that is,
Ooh,
basically you can
ooh.
straight into, they say straight off the streets, but let's be honest, like you go through infantry basic training, you go through, airborne, and you go through some like SOPC courses, which are basically preparations courses. They basically would torture us a little extra before we went on to selection and torture us a little more before we went on to phase two. I'm assuming a lot of our listeners are kind of know the background, or should I explain what
We've
these are?
we've had a few post 9/11 X-rays on here, and they generally don't refer to it as torture. It's more of a brutality. You guys were brutalized for wanting to be civilians and then Green Berets.
Yeah.
So those were the bad years from 2001 to 2006, really.
Well, let's be honest too. It's a brilliant recruiting tool. Why? Because all of us kids in the late 90s wanted to be Navy SEALs or something like that, right? Like we are all watching like Tears of the Sun and these movies that are inaccurate and stuff now. But I mean, back then, that's what was everywhere. I mean, I remember everyone I knew played Counter Strike. I don't know if you ever heard of that game, but there was a game where you're either a
Yeah.
terrorist or a CT. I mean, we played this game for hours and hours and hours. So we all wanted to be Navy SEALs, basically. And I wanted to go in the army because basically I was worried that if I wanted to leave California, man, honestly, I wanted to get out of there and go experience stuff. And when I went to the Navy and the Marine recruiters, they're like, "Oh, yeah, you could stay right here in California and go, basic down here, or you could get stationed down here." And I was like, I went over to the army, and they're like, "You could go to Italy or Korea or Germany." And I was like, "I'll do that."
Or
Basically,
you
like
could
that's,
go to Oklahoma like I did. Come on. There's
or you
always a
could do Iraq,
downside. Yeah.
or you could end up in Iraq getting shot at
Yeah.
130 degrees. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
But
they don't tell you that part.
no, I wanted to. If I was going to do it, bro, I'll tell you. When I decide to do something, I definitely go all the way in. This problem is deciding to do something for me. Once I'm in, I'm all the way in. So once I decided army, I was like, I'm not going to be a cook or anything, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Those are critical positions to fill, but I just mean that it just wasn't for me. I am not good at admin stuff. I'm not really good at technical, like comms and stuff like that. I can't imagine me just sitting on the chow line serving. So it's probably going to be infantry, and if I'm going to do that, I'd like to do like the ranger thing. I didn't know all the ins and outs, but I knew it was like elite infantry basically.
Yeah.
And so I was like, and I had saw a video of them like scaling on the side of the rock cliffs and like shooting probably blanks, but like shooting basically Aussie repellent and shooting off the side of like a rock cliff or something. And I saw them like parachuting, and I was like, oh, dude, that's
Which
it.
happens all the time. Which happens all the time,
Yeah, I
right?
never did that shit again. Never. But funny enough, yeah, and there's always like the videos of them like walking through like neck high water for some reason. I'm like, why are you walking through neck high water to get to the target? Are you telling me that's the only way to get to the target? Really? Like
Which we
that's a
only did
terrible
at
route
selection.
plan. Yeah.
Yeah.
If my guys planned a route that was going to walk me up a swamp for 2 miles up to the target, I'd be like, no, try again, bro. In fact, you're
Yeah.
off the team. um, but so long, I guess long story short, I went in for the ranger thing, and I was kind of waiting in like what did they call that, like where you're like waiting to go. I can't remember, like there's a status of like temporary delayed status or something. I can't remember what they called it, bro, but I
Delayed
was
entry.
yeah, delayed entry, I think. Yeah. And so it's funny. I'm like literally going to sign up to go on basically infantry and go fight in the war, and it's like I have to wait to join. It's like that's pretty interesting, huh? It's like quite the opposite of like a draft type system. It's like it's actually hard to volunteer. Like we're going to Mets in the middle of like the Iraq invasion. Basically, where it was just kicking off as I was joining, and like we're trying to volunteer. There's a backlist of folks, but basically I was kind of I knew what I wanted to do, man. I started training hard. I just started like running up hills and whatever I could do to train. I didn't know exactly how to train, but you know what I did kind of worked. I mean, basically doing a lot of trail running outdoors, you know, up and down hills in Southern California. Like,
You
and
can
I'm
be
and
very successful in the military if you can run fast. I mean, you
yeah,
could, yeah, you'll get promoted ahead of your peers if you're fast at running in the regular army.
I wasn't the best runner, by the way. And
Nobody ever
funny
is.
enough, I know as far as I got in the military, I never did it off my running. I would always be able to run good enough to pass like the tests and everything, you know, but especially later in my career, it was getting very hard to like max them. You know what I mean? I'm a
Yeah.
big dude, by the way. If you guys don't know, I'm 6'3", 275, you know, and I fluctuate between 265, 275. I was a few pounds lighter in the army, of course, especially back in the years where I was running around over there, but I was never a small guy. So it was always hard for me to max the run, basically. All that other stuff, crush it, dude. Especially that new test they have now where like you throw the med ball and all that. I'm like, give it to me. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was born to throw med balls, bro. You know, drag sleds and shit. Like that's what I'm good at. But you know, joined did the X-ray thing, bro. Went through, you know, boot camp in Georgia down there, and then you know went up to Fort Bragg, and literally, basically, that SOPC one was like, I'm no joke. In like 2000, early 2004, it was a new program, and like it was basically like the dudes, half of them had like went to combat and came back and had like halfway had PTSD. They were all in super good shape, I will say that, but they were all mostly fucking lunatics that were drinking and torturing us. Basically, like we'd go out in the woods and they'd be like drunk, like drinking the bottle while like you know whatever, smoking us or making us do whatever the hell, dude. Breaking ice out there at Lake, you know, Mott Lake or wherever lake that was out there. I can't remember anymore, but you know, breaking the ice, meaning you just walk into it until you break and then submerge yourself.
Yeah.
Slowly walk in the water until you break all the ice, right? Like I know you
Well,
know what
you,
I'm trying to explain what they
oh fuck,
do.
you guys were the ones that we were told stories about, right? Of because I didn't know what an X-ray was till I got to selection and I start talking about them, and they've just been getting smoked for 6 months, right? Because we went in the class after summer, so their SOPSI had started in January or some shit, and then they got held over, and they just been there for months, just getting shit on, and they go, "Oh, you don't even know." 5, 8 years ago, the original those guys, some people like Cadre were coming back and just brutalizing these people that wanted to be Green Berets, and that's the class you were in.
Cover. Well, I wasn't in the first. I'm not saying that. I don't know exactly when it started, but I do know that I went in early 2004, like I think March or April, you know, something like that. And it was pretty. It was still a pretty new program. Like they had all that stuff, like you know, that black stuff we put around the fence. I can't remember what that shit's called, but it was all blacked out around there with like razor wire. Like no one could go back there. It had like signs like special access. Like it was basically very non-inviting for any outside like regular army people to go back there and see what they were doing back there because yeah, I mean, you know, I don't want to make it sound like too bad. I mean, basically, yeah, dude, lots of just smoking us and like rolling around in the sand and then low crawling in mud and you know, like if you do that for enough hours, you start to get like little infections and little cuts and some guys just quit and that's what they're looking for. I mean, honestly, that's all they were doing. It's just like, all right, who actually wants to be here? This was a recruiting tool for the army. We got a bunch of young kids that think they can be Green Beret badasses. They're all infantry trained. Okay, let's see which ones are going to quit. And a lot of them would. You know, I don't know what the washout rate was, but I know it was over 50%. I mean, for sure. I felt like every day I was there, like we started with like 75 young kids with their duffel bags. And then, you know, like every day I was there, I felt like at least 5 or 6 just disappeared for something, injuries or quit mostly, you know, like honestly. There's different ways of quitting, dude. Like if you got a small wound and you go to the aid station, like you're kind of quitting. Like, sorry, I'm not even like trying to, you know, it's not a hard ass. It's just in that environment they expect you to like push through. If you actually hurt something significantly, I mean, you have to. There's nothing you can do, right? But basically, if you can keep pushing on through your bloody feet or your blisters or your scratches or your little, I mean, hell, dude, I had MRSA when I got out of phase 2. I didn't even know it, but my leg was so fucked up. I went in and saw it. And you know, guy looked at it, and the guy's like, "Yeah, you've been walking around with MRSA. Like, thank God you came in here." So they had to cut a piece out of my leg. But you know, just small stuff like that too. You know,
Yeah, there's hurt and there's injured, and you're supposed to push through the hurt part until you get injured, and then you get dropped from the course, and you got to go to the 82nd. But what what switched you over from? So did you have a Ranger contract, and then
oh, it's
you?
my yeah. I sounded confusing there. Yeah, I went in for the Ranger contract, but remember the ATX is the big push. So I get to MEPS down in San Diego, military entry processing station, where we all go through. And the guy pulled me aside. He's like, "Hey, your GT score and your physical scores or whatever, like you fit the characteristics to do this 18 X-ray thing." And I was honestly, dude, like for a split second, I was kind of like honored. I didn't understand. He's just recruiting me basically, but at the same time, I was like kind of honored for him to say it, but I was a little intimidated. I was like, "Oh man." I didn't know what it was. I thought it basically meant like infantry, ranger, green beret. I thought it was like that simple. And so I'm like, oh man, I think I was a young kid. I'm like, I think I can maybe do this, but I'm a little scared to go all the way up. I mean, to the pros or whatever. And I know it's not like that in hindsight. It's a different job, different thing.
Yeah. Depends
But
on who you ask
I
also.
did. I did. I felt compelled to do it. I felt called to do it. And the truth of the matter is, he goes, "Hey, if you do this, you can ship out sooner." And by the way, I had a shit job I didn't like at the time. I was like changing oil at like a Jiffy Lube. You know what I mean? Burning my hands and like just, it wasn't a very fun job, or it didn't pay very well. But anyway, it was pretty easy to make a decision. I was like, I'll try the X-ray thing, because basically you go through infantry training and airborne, and you can, the idea was you could always go to Ranger if you wanted to, anyways. Which I did not do, by the way. I never went to Ranger school. In
A
my
lot
20
of
years at SF, I never went to Ranger school.
I never went to Ranger. I never even had the opportunity to go to it. I had a colonel on. I interviewed the other day. He never had, just didn't have the opportunity. Never got to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and but some guys, especially in first group, and you know this, it's not that big of a thing in first group. The closer you get back to Fort Bragg, it becomes more prevalent, guys having them. But in 1-1, dudes are not flying back from Japan to go to Ranger School. That's for sure. And they're rarely flying back from Fort Lewis, Maine to go to Ranger School either. And I remember we did set a group of, I think we sent 12 guys once, and this was in 2015, end of 15, and all of them got dropped for sit-ups because the Ranger bat guys had to get into groups or into the Ranger school slots. So all the Green Berets got dropped, and Sergeant Major was pissed. So we didn't send anybody after that.
You made everybody do sit-ups for a week, right? Like, it wasn't
No.
actually the sit-ups, Sergeant Major. They just didn't want us in there.
Oh, they were pissed. They were not happy that and then at that point I determined it wasn't a real school, because every other school in the Army, you have a chance to pass it. But if you go to Ranger School and there's just not enough slots, they'll just drop who they want to drop and put in the people that need to go through, like Ranger Battalion. So I determined it wasn't a real school at that point. I don't know, could be a wrong assumption, depends on who you ask, but I never
No,
heard of or been to a
whatever, man.
Army
It
school
just
like that.
time. It seemed I just didn't have the opportunity. Basically, I was in the early
Yeah.
years. I was solely focused on going to combat, and we were doing, back-to-back rotations. And if you were in first group, you were doing all of your normal stuff in between, which includes your PME, your professional military education schools, all your other shooting schools, your JSETs to Asia. I mean, there was not a lot of time to go to a school that, as you said, was not like, I mean, in your case, you say not a real school, but I know what you mean. And basically, it was like it wasn't a critical skill. Like, we all kind of knew how to patrol. We all kind of knew how to stay up all for 3 nights if we really had to,
Oh yeah.
right? Like, so. And I'm not saying it's only that. I'm not minimizing. I just simply saying that it wasn't a school where I'm like, man, I'm gonna go get a new skill set and bring this back to my team. Therefore, it was not prioritized to me.
Yeah.
Really, it's not a priority for me.
Yeah, especially after you get the Special Forces tab. But
Yeah.
so
And plus, I was at Sephardic, and like I already had some, some schools. Once I had been to combat, once I'd already been to Sephardic and a couple of, SF schools, basically. So once you start going to those, man, like you get Halo, or scuba school, or some of the advanced shooting schools like Sephardic, or Sodic or something. I mean, you're gaining a real skill you're bringing back to your team. You know what I mean? As opposed to the other one, which is good for your career. It's good for your personal character. It's good for your
Mhm.
story. It's, probably good for a lot of things, but no, you're going to go shoot blanks in the woods and suffer for 60 days, basically. you know?
Yeah, but good on the guys that went and got to get it. They get it for the rest of their lives. I didn't get it, so but that one, that's something that doesn't bother me at all. Good for them. That's one I'm like, take it or leave it. But so we get through SOPSI, which was probably pretty rough. Um,
Good
from
job.
from but you get there, right? tougher than the people that quit. And you get to selection. And I've had other guests describe this. When they got to selection, it was like a relaxing event because there's no cadre shitting on them 24/7 now.
Yes.
And they just,
Selection was a
take,
was a vacation if you were an X-ray.
yeah, take all direction from the board and just do what they told you to do, right? So you got some time off.
So yeah, I mean, selection's interesting, man. Like I'll say this, like for people that don't know, I mean, I know we have a mix of people listening, and I'm gonna have some people probably listening too that don't know the military as well as us. So I'm just gonna try to describe it both ways.
Oh yeah, man.
Um, does that work?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Parkins,
So if I
this
have, it's not like I'm
this
explaining
your
it.
show. This is
That's
your
got
show, man. I want to hear
yeah.
I want to hear your story and what you thought about everything.
But that's okay. So the interesting part of transition. I just want to say this because it's interesting. It's communication's an interesting piece, dude. Since I've come out talking to civilians that have no military experience is interesting. We don't even realize that we have a whole language we've lived in. In my case, for half my life, you know, my entire adult life was spent in this language. And so I talk it and I get real comfortable in it, but I forget, like, a lot of times civilians have no idea what I'm talking about. So I'll catch myself and then I'll explain it. But so I have a habit of doing that now. If I do it and it's annoying, I'm sorry. But you get to select after SOP C, like I said, where they're just kind of like running your. I mean, dude, it's just show up, 4 in the morning. Fucking just smoke the hell out of us, run us down through some swamps, like before the sun even comes up. You go to selection, man. I tell you, I had anxiety the entire time because I went from basic training to airborne to SOP C to there, and that was the first time I didn't have nothing but adult men screaming in my face, basically, in one way or the other. You know what I mean? There was no one telling me anything, in fact.
Yeah.
In fact, there was no real direction. I mean, we're just like camping out in the woods. So, I mean, for the first day or two, like it's weird. You don't really do a lot, like intentionally and shit. So, and I don't want to go into all the specifics of it, but I just mean that selection's interesting in that way. They kind of just like watch you and see what you do, and then all of a sudden, randomly, like a time and a weight will pop on the board or something like that, as you know, and you go over there and do it. But man, comparatively to people coming in and screaming and smoking at us, smoking us and all that stuff, like it was a vacation, bro. I mean, I mean, you're not supposed to sleep or whatever, but it's basically everyone's like catching a little nap here and there, like, hey, I'll wake you up if they come. And, like,
No, that never happened.
you know what I'm saying? Pretend to read your book and you're kind of hiding. But, yeah, dude, that was fun for me. I mean, I don't want to make light of it either, by the way. It's very difficult. I just mean the fact that it was wedged in between all of this other stuff and I was so young that honestly, that particular one was kind of fun because, again, no one was really messing with us. The trek at the end, and by the way, this trek thing has changed. It changes all constantly. It changes every 2 years. So everyone's trek or team week or whatever was different. But the last week of selection, you probably did your hardest event, and you probably did it in some form of team, and you probably walked a long damn way, either in between stations or on a road march. In our case, we walked between stations where you had to problem solve and and you're wearing your rucks and everything. I'm trying to like, paint a good picture of it. You're walking in these sandy trails and you're patrolling, but you're just kind of you're out there. It was getting pretty hot there in like May, June, and we must have walked about 2.5 days. I mean, it was over 48 hours. I know that, and I mean, in some cases you come up on a thing and there's like a 300-pound sandbag or whatever it is, a couple 200-pound sandbags, couple poles and a few lashings and like a G chief, like a role player you have to talk to, your captain goes and talks to, and he always messes it up no matter what he does. It's not his fault. And then we have to carry the poles and the bags, basically make a contraption and carry it on to the next. And so you would do all of these weird things like that back to back to back. And you're walking, I would say somewhere between 8 to 10 miles between these stations. And then each station will be a couple miles, and then you patrol to another station. And so I seem to recall we walked something like 50 miles. It was definitely 45 plus. I don't think it was 60, but I seem to recall it was about 50, which was something like 90 kilometers. Because remember that you kept your pace count. We literally had a pace count for that entire 2 days.
No, that is
Pace.
my one flex from my land nav and everything. I not once, even in the only time I kept pace count was when they told us to find out how many steps it was for 100 meters. I never
Yeah.
kept pace. I never when I
Yeah.
land nav, I set a backstop, and I never shot for my point. I always shot for an intersection, found that intersection, and then shot back to my point. I found the laziest way to get through selection in that regard. So yeah, that's one thing I could say. I never kept pace ever.
That was another thing. I did not grow up doing outdoorsy shit, or I'll tell you this, definitely didn't grow up around maps and compasses and stuff. Nothing like that. I mean, I played sports outside. I just mean that I wasn't out like doing stuff in the woods like a lot of guys grew up that way. But I picked up land nav pretty quick, dude. That saved my ass. A lot of guys that were in better shape and probably smarter than me and had a lot of other things couldn't land nav, and they just didn't make it. So that's another thing. If you can't land nav, and at least in Army Special Forces selection, you're not going to pass. I don't know if that's changed, but at least during the years I was in, like that was the most critical thing of that was like be in shape, don't get hurt, don't quit, and be able to land nav. You can't be lost in the middle of the woods, basically. So luckily I was good at that. Train association, bro. That's what I did. Sorry, I got something. Train association's what I did, man. Basically, I didn't keep a pace count either. The guy on my team did in this case because he was a big pace count guy. I don't know. He wanted to know how far we were walking or something. But no, I didn't do that either. I couldn't. Honestly, though, what I would have to do a lot of times in my head, and I don't know why, but I would have to like play a song over and over or something. When I would go for really, really long rucks, to the point where it wasn't just like exercise, it's like something like this, like selection. I had to like I had to entertain myself somehow, dude. So I would be like, making fantasies up about like how I'm gonna open a Mexican restaurant, or like, or just playing music over and over in my head.
I forgot
And I
about
had
the
a friend
music. I
told me when
used
I
to do
told him
that
that, like,
too.
yeah,
Oof.
you think about it, you would
I
make a
forgot
plan.
about that. I forgot, and I would get so mad that I kept repeating a song over and over again. I'd be like, "Fuck,
Yeah,
this is torture. I'm torturing myself."
it's never a song you want to hear that many times, dude. I
God, I
remember
forgot
being out
about
in the middle
that.
of the woods and just walking, dude. You're just humping it. And I mean, yeah, you're train associating, you're doing multiple things, you're navigating, but really, you just got to do something to kill the time. And I would hear this song. I can't remember if it was Skinner or who it was, but it was like an old like NASCAR type of like old like Southern rock type song. But how's it go? It's like I'm traveling down the road, not
I'm
flirting
flirting with
with
disaster. Yeah,
disaster. I would hear that song over
Manfred
and
Man.
over and over and over. Who was it, Skinner or
I think it's Manfred Man.
Master Man? Dude. That I would hear that song over and over. I couldn't get it out of my head. And by the way, I didn't like grow up listening to it, so I don't know where it came from. But dude, out there in the middle of those woods and swamps in North Carolina, man, I would hear that song over and over.
I forgot about that. I had the same, kind of the same story. I don't remember the song, but I do remember I got lost once, and I just kept hearing that song, and it's quiet out there. I'm like, shut the fuck up! Stop playing the song. I gotta figure out where I'm at.
You talked to yourself a little bit out there when you were doing the Singleton line now?
Oh man, it's just a constant swear fest. And I talked to somebody about this yesterday. I am a complainer, but I tend not to complain to other people. But when I get with other complainers, I feed off that. We complain together, and then we grow into this parasitic relationship where we're just complaining, but somehow getting stronger. So it's just me fucking bitching the whole time out there, like fuck this. This is stupid. Oh my god, fuck you. This tree. Ah, and then there's a banana spider. God damn it.
Dude, we're all that
Oh.
way, man. That's why, like, like not to be corny, but that's why leaders are so important, dude. Even on the teams, right? We get together and like a couple of Bravo starts bitching to the Delta's bitching. Before you know it, you're out of the room for 10 minutes. You walk back in and like everyone's fighting, or like the basically the energy's completely off. Like, dude, we were ready to train 20 minutes ago. What's going on? So we're all kind of that way, but there's usually one guy that pops in and says like the right thing, and we're like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, somebody's got to pull the team together. There's always a
Special ops, obviously, dude. You like, including this stuff we're talking about, just walking for miles upon miles upon miles upon miles. Like, I know it doesn't sound fancy to like workout people, like, but dude, just try it. I mean, cross terrain. By the way, you're gonna cross some swamps or streams. Like, it don't matter how good you navigate. At least where we did it out there where the Star Course is. There's water crossings and moccasins and just things that go boo in the night and stuff. And I mean, how many times in the middle of the night did you hear like or like fuck like dude, like one time I heard such a blood curdling scream. I'm like, I actually wanted to go help them, but I remember they told us like, don't help your friends if there's an emergency. They shoot a flare. Like if they're screaming for help, you just keep going. I mean, I don't know if they changed that policy, but when I went, they're like, if you help your friends, you're like out, dude.
The cadre basically said, "Fuck them." That's what they
Yeah,
said.
leave them.
They,
I don't care if you know them or not. Like,
unless you come across somebody that is actively dying, fuck them.
yeah.
And that's what I had in my mind. No matter what I heard out there, It's just like, okay, it's just me, my little cap, my red lamp, and my compass, and
Yeah.
that's it, man. I I didn't give a shit about anybody when I was out there except me. And we got to team week. That's a whole different story. But I'm out there alone. There's nobody else out here but me, and I was fairly convinced there was a monster following me around out there when I was out there. But I was doing my best not to freak out about it.
Draw
Yeah.
master.
No, man, I made a huge. Have you ever seen the movie The Village?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I watched that before I went out to selection. That was a huge fucking mistake. I was scared that that thing was out there. And it was in my head. And I was like I'm like, come on, Nick, pull yourself together. All we got to do is find 4 points.
By the way, for people that don't know out there, I mean, those of us that have been doing this a while, we all know, but like for folks that don't, like, dude, walking out in the woods, especially by yourself, but not even always by yourself, like sleep deprived in the middle of the night, like you're going to see and hear weird shit.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I am never shocked when someone says, like, I saw Bigfoot. And I'm not saying because I believe them, I believe that they saw that. But
Yeah.
you know what I mean? If they were in the middle of the woods, especially tired or on drugs or something, because I've been so tired, man. I've seen my whole formation walking off and following it, and I go up to tap my buddy, and I'm like, it's a bush. I mean, we've all done that stuff when you're just kind of droning, like sleep deprived. I mean, I saw stuff out there that you know don't, clearly don't exist. You know what I mean? The weirdest little things, like so. The fact that you
Have you heard the
hear or see an
rumor?
animal is not wild to me.
Have you ever heard the story or the rumor of the candidate who got in a fight and with a deer and ended up stabbing it to death? Was that one of the stories that you heard during selection or anything like that?
I've heard things like that, dude. Yeah, I've heard.
You
I don't
know,
remember. Yeah,
there's always these stories and rumors of classes gone past where a student dies from being bit by a snake or a guy got attacked by a deer. Well, I was down in North Carolina and working with some guys, and
get
I
your ass
met
kicked by a deer in special forces selection, and you're out, dude.
all the
You're not
deer.
allowed. You're not allowed to get your ass kicked by a deer in special forces.
I met the cadre that were on that class in the late 80s or 90s, where the kid actually, yeah, went into a draw, encountered a deer, and he fucking stabbed the deer to death. And the cadre come out and he's covered in blood, shoots off his flare, and they're like, okay, I guess continue to train, and that became like legend, right? And that's what we hear of later on down the road of these rumors of things that happen to students and shit like that. But
Yeah,
yeah, selection's weird, man. It's
good
dark. Weird
story.
shit happens in the dark.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I've
was
heard
there any
people trying.
point?
I didn't think like that, but so no,
Was
selection
there
was
any?
straightforward. I was pretty good at land nav, so I passed it.
Yeah,
Like the land nav stuff first time. That was awesome, even though it meant that we just had to do more, rucksack marches and stuff. But we got more time off. The star course basically. Then team week, as you know, is like that long thing I explained. So got selected as a Charlie, and then went to phase 3. I was a Charlie when I first started. I ended up becoming a Fox and then a 180 because I went warrant leader. But yeah, I started my special forces career as a Charlie. Always felt like I was a Charlie. Even
yeah,
later when I was other positions, I didn't. You know what I mean? Like when it came to Charlie stuff, I wanted our Charlies, to do it right. Like it's kind of like when your team sergeant was a Bravo. Like you're gonna have a tough range, man. I mean, he's just gonna be up your ass. You know what I mean? And that's kind of was the Charlie stuff. But yeah, and then yeah, I've got first group, dude. So I got Tagalog, which by the way is it's not the hardest language in 6 months. So I kind of got lucky. And
yeah,
for folks who don't know out there, you have to pass a language. You have to get to a certain level of proficiency in a language to pass the special forces qualification course. And not everyone can do that, believe it or not. It's difficult for some folks. And um, I did fine because I was lucky. Like I said, I got Tagalog. I grew up. I didn't grow up speaking Spanish, but I grew up around it, so I kind of understood some of what they were saying, and then I learned it and got pretty proficient. I was a two plus two plus throughout my career actually in Tagalog. I kept that throughout my whole career to my
pretty
last
proficient. Yeah, that's good.
LP3. Not saying that bragging. I mean, like it's kind of cool because a lot of people lose their language, right? Like if you get Korean or Chinese and you happen to pass the Q course, your likelihood of maintaining that language, unless you grew up speaking it, is almost zero. I mean, unless
Yeah,
you're just literally going around your off time studying and speaking it. I mean, it's very difficult to maintain that. But Tagalog, I kind of could. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like there's enough Filipinos around. You know what I'm saying? Even in
there
America, so
are.
you could,
Yeah,
yeah,
especially out by first group, man.
Yeah.
what what was the course like for you? You know, did you have any points where you go, I don't know if I'm going to make it? Because usually, for me, it was only that 7 minutes of time fuse when I was questioning my life choices, whether it was going
Oh
to
yeah,
hit
yeah.
on zero or not. But
What was it? I can't remember. It's been so many years. Was it plus or minus? You had to like a plus or minus 2 seconds or
five, but
5 seconds.
you guys were three.
There was three. Yeah. Dude, you
Yeah,
know what? I do remember. I forgot about that. I mean, dude, it's been almost 20 years since I was in we're talking about 2004. Oh my God, it's been 20 years, dude. But yeah, I do remember the time fuse. I mean, I'll tell you, the Charlie course is funny because, like, at least when I went, there was so much emphasis, obviously, on that stuff, calc and place. Almost, I think, like 75% of our class failed the first calc and place exam to the point where it was like alarming. They were like wondering if they taught it right or whatever. So they
really.
did like a mandatory like study hall thing, and like even if you pass, you're gonna come in. Like we're basically doing a mandatory like restudy, and somehow miraculously the next time we come in, like a bunch of us pass.
Hmm.
Not to say, by the way, I hope I'm not insinuating anything. It wasn't like a cheating thing or a foot stomper. It was just like somehow like we must not have gotten one of the blocking instructions that we were supposed to get because we were all fucking up the same things on the test. And so I was stressing that, dude. When I failed that, I know I said like half the class, but that didn't make me feel any better, bro. I mean, half the class can fail. I mean, the whole thing, basically.
Yeah,
So for an academic test, like to go through all that and then fail an academic test would have killed me, But I didn't find the academics to be easy. I think a lot of people say that. I don't know. There's a lot of guys, I guess, went to like high level, colleges and stuff. They're like, oh, the academics, the easy part. Like, yeah, I found the academics to be very challenging in the Q course. I don't know. I found every academic thing I ever did at SWIC, to be honest, which includes the warrant course later, I mean, we'll say the Fox course later, SLC, whatever, the warrant course, the warrant officer advanced course. Like, those were all academically very challenging for me. I
yeah.
was, I'm jumping around because we're talking about the
No,
Q. I
you're
mean, later in the warrant officer advanced course, I was stressed, dude. Like, I probably shouldn't even say this, but there was probably some people that didn't have a normal Adderall prescription, like popping them and like staying up all night, like studying. It was very academically intense, dude. I'll just say that. Like, people out of
alleged,
character were like finding Adderall and stuff. Like, I was like, damn. So,
allegedly.
yeah. I'll just say it was
Um,
me, allegedly, not his plan. It was.
uh, yeah. So everybody listening home, the Charlie course, Special Forces Engineer course. The first part, they take your fucking calculator away and they make you do long division with a pen and a pencil, and that is one of the reasons why most of the dudes fail that is because they haven't done long division written out since they were in what 11th, 10th grade, ninth grade, something like that.
Let me tell you
So
this. I don't think that they did that when I was there because I might. I don't remember doing that, but
really? Oh no, they took our calculators away. We had to do everything written out by hand.
I mean, they might have taken the calculators, but I just like I don't remember like a long division specific test that would have crushed me. Maybe I did. Maybe it's just been that long, dude. Honestly, it's been a long time.
All right, well, cool. Well, and then it was something else then that,
Q course, they change it all the time. That's the thing. It's never the same. I mean,
yeah.
that Q course I went through in 2004, they didn't have a SWIC army of like green suiters yet. It was mostly like old civilian dudes
Oh yeah,
from
yeah.
Vietnam and shit. It was a whole different thing, dude. Like we learned like, I don't, like base camp, base camp construction and base camp activities, like
Oh
building
yeah.
like a
So we had
Vietnam like
what is it?
camp.
8 weeks. I think it was 8 weeks of construction or something. Or maybe it was 6 weeks construction.
Yeah.
Um,
Ours was
that
like the
was
2 or 3 weeks, and it was a joke. Honestly, I don't know what I learned. I passed the test, but I don't know. And we built something as a team, but I'm like, I barely remember what the hell we did there, to be honest.
oh, mine was a blast. I did get dimed out the first day of class though. Every single motherfucker pointed at me when the cadre asked who has the most experience, and they all pointed at Ward. And I
So
went,
you
oh
remember?
well, I guess I'm in for it now. And cadre's like, come on up here, motherfucker. And he starts quizzing me on the whiteboard about, building a house and shit. And I was like, no, I would do this and this and this. And he looks at me and goes, okay, you're class leader. I was like,
That's fair.
great.
Dude, you know what? Funny enough, that it's funny that ties in because that's exactly what happens. I mean, we pretend that like age and background doesn't make a difference, but it does. I mean, for instance, me, I was a 20-year-old X-ray, and I mean,
Yeah.
I probably looked every bit of 18. Like I probably didn't even look. I look so young, like. and I was so young. So man, you know what I mean? Like for instance, if they gave me that role, I could be the lead of the construction site. Like that would have been
Yeah.
something I would have struggled with more than the tests or the physical tests or the blowing shit up, basically, which is the fun part. You do all this, you know, at least in the Charlie course, so you can blow stuff up. But um, yeah, that's we had the same thing basically. We had a guy that was a foreman before, and he was immediately called.
Yeah.
Let me tell you another funny story we had in our Charlie course. One guy was making a funny point, you know, an instructor would, and he goes, "Unless you're a rocket scientist, you know, it's a saying, something like that. We don't have any rocket scientists in the room, right?" And this one guy was like, and they're like, "What, asshole? Like you're a rocket scientist?" And he's like, "Actually, yes, I graduated as an aeronautical engineer from like whatever university." So we had like a legit rocket scientist, 18 X-ray, like in there. He was older, but I mean, like, funny. I mean, mixed in. I'm a 19-year-old. He's like a 30-year-old rocket scientist. You know, like
Yeah, I went
in
through
the
selection in 2011 with a guy that was in NASA. We thought he was joking, and the other SOPSI or the other 18 extras are like, no, he left NASA because he got bored, and he's like, I'm gonna go be a Green Beret. Dude was a stud. I mean, just a
that's
genius
great.
stud, and just like, yeah, I'm done shooting rockets into space. I'm gonna go be a Green Beret, and that's the kind of people you would see in X-rays because everybody on the prior service side, you know, they're coming out of the army and they're just coming from whatever unit and whatever MOS. But that was quite the mix of individuals on the X-ray side. Is you'd have people that were stock traders, NASA rocket scientists. There was a professional runner. There were a lot of professional athletes that were coming through that decided they wanted to do something really hard. But is that kind of what you saw on your side as well?
Yeah. You know, back then it was a little different. Um, Honestly, I think the requirements to get in were like a little less stringent. They were the standards weren't lower, but I mean like to get in, the requirements were lower. Like for instance, like I think later to be an X-ray, you had to be at least like 22 years old and like have a college degree or something. When I went, you didn't. I mean, I was not. I was like barely out of high school, you know. So I was like 19. Basically, back then, if you could do it, you could do it. If
Mm-hmm.
not, and you quit, you went down the street to the 82nd or you got shipped off on order somewhere. I mean, either way, you're serving the military. I mean, it's not a bad thing. That's like, hey, you're doing infantry. So, but you know, there was a mix of everybody. Yes. You know what it does do? When you put that bat signal out there, you say like, hey, an 18 X-ray type thing, like, hey, we want to see our nation's best. You want to try out for our special forces? Like, that's kind of what you're doing. You're going to attract a lot of people that you know are adventure seekers. They come from all these backgrounds, and like you said, some of them are very accomplished already. Some of them were very young like me and hadn't done shit yet, basically. But because of all that, it's very fascinating. And in the program, man, like the guys I went through like basic training with in my platoon, they were almost all X-rays, and we like almost all stayed together at each phase. I mean, you start to split at MOS and different things, you know what I mean? But as far as like SOPSI selection, like MOS phase, like I was seeing the same guys over and over. You know, so we were all really close. Even though they were older, I was like their little brother, you know what I mean? Like they helped me out and stuff. Like when I was struggling to do the math, probably like you were saying, the division. Like, I was definitely struggling with math. I remember in that course. And I got a lot of free tutoring from older guys that were getting frustrated with me. And I was like, dude, I'm paying attention. I just suck at math. It was, you know, it was the same way in school as a kid. It wasn't, I was good at the other topics, man. I just was not wired well for math for some reason. Um,
Well, I mean,
Lots
you
of
got
shit.
through it, right? You still got through it, and
Yeah, yeah.
you got to. That's the
Uh,
thing, you know. If you're, I think the guys that are gonna make it through just make it through no matter what. No matter what you put in front of them, they're gonna figure out how to get it done because the course is what it is.
it's
It's
designed to be
always
that.
changing, but the people that are gonna be Green Berets will be Green Berets in the end. They'll figure out how to do it. So you know, you got
Willingness
pretty
to suffer.
structured pretty structured up until now, right? What do you think when you get to Robin Sage and it's this UW exercise and they let you loose in Western North Carolina? How was that?
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of visiting Pineland multiple times actually. Because I did it not only in the Q course, but then later, I believe we studied that same scenario. I can't remember what university did that whole Pineland build out, but it's a big deal. They created a whole country and world and thing, you know. So I did in the Q course, yes, and then later as a warrant, and then I think we studied the Fox course, and then the warrant officer advanced course. We did like more stuff with it. So I had to learn more about Pineland than I ever wanted to, basically. And that Pineland is like central, North Carolina, basically. I mean, it's bigger than that, but just for this perspective, the exercise is kind of out in the middle of the woods there in central North Carolina. Um, what's the name of that little town out there? I can't even remember, but maybe we shouldn't even say. I don't know. There's a bunch of little towns out there, the little NASCAR redneck towns. And I mean that with all due respect. They're nice people, actually. Everyone that I met out there was very kind, but it's definitely a little podunk town, right? Like Albemarle. That's what I was thinking. Albemarle is the name of the
Yeah,
area.
I've been there a few times.
Yeah. But no, it's good hiking and stuff throughout there anyways. I mean, you see civilian hikers while you're out there and stuff sometimes, But yeah, we jumped into Pineland, dude, and the Q course. So I was one of the teams that did not walk that far, honestly. We jumped in, and my cadre was a really cool dude. Believe it or not, he was pretty nice. Like, he didn't really fuck with us, man. He just let us do it. We showed up. We had to go, cache the chutes or whatever, and then we did link up. We went and did like SEALs, patrolled into the woods a little bit, went to a link up point. There was a cache there. We had to carry all this heavy shit, probably like, I can't remember. It's probably further than I remember because back then I was so conditioned for walking, honestly. But I mean, it feels like it was 3 or 4 miles through some like rough terrain. That was pretty rough. But then we got there and we got rides into the G camp from there. So that's pretty nice. Some people, every lane's different, basically, is what we're just explaining. And in my particular lane, we got to do an airborne operation into it. So it was kind of like, it was almost it wasn't admin. We basically had to carry some stuff down to the trucks and then do a drive in from the airfield, basically.
That's no fun. Come
Yeah.
on. No, but that's good. Yeah, some lanes jumped in, so I think we walked. I don't know what we did. I don't really remember. I remember we walked, but I I really don't remember much of Sage. It was fun. I went out on the first mission, and then I didn't leave the G base after that. I assume I had
Uh,
gotten my go, and other
that's your
people
patrol.
needed to
Yeah.
go get theirs. So
Yeah.
I built a shitter. I built an addition on the G base camp. A pen for the hog and things like that. I just was doing Charlie stuff the whole time and just goofing off. It seemed like.
Yeah. To be honest, our other Charlie, like, we had two Charlies. The other Charlie was better at the construction. Not that, like, I helped him with the construction, but I was way better at patrolling. So anytime we had an aerial resupply, or like I said before, I just happened to pick up like land nav really well. I don't know why, dude. Maybe I was just taught very well from the instructor I had or something, or I was just naturally inclined to picking it up because I did. And then they would have me lead all the patrols. Because if not, sometimes patrols would get lost.
Yeah.
And what happens if you get lost? You basically fail your patrol. So it's like, all right. So ended up going on almost every patrol, dude. Even though I wasn't getting graded on them, I was at least point man, or I was like helping set up the raid or whatever. We had a foreign captain with us too. So my instructor
Mm.
was like, he's like, you already got your go, but he's like, I want to see how you deal with foreign officers, basically. It's like, you're going to first group, I'm first group. He's like, you're going to be dealing with a lot of foreign officers, so I'm gonna put you on this patrol. He's like, you got your go, but I want you to take this seriously. I'm gonna base the rest of your evaluation on like how you deal with this basically planning a joint bilateral operation type of thing in a small level, And so, yeah, me and this dude I mean, I speak very broken Spanish. He spoke very broken English. And we just kind of started building the terrain model, dude, and we figured it out. But, yeah, he struggled with certain words because he had to give a briefing. I want to tell this because it's funny. We had the thing where, that flare thing, we'd go, all right, we're going to get to a certain point. We're going to hit this, and then we're going to shift fires. Remember that in a raid? You would like,
Yeah.
shift and then lift fires. So at a certain point, we're supposed to give the signal to shift fire, but he couldn't say the F very well. So he kept saying, we're going to go here. We're going to shift fire. We're going to do this. And then the shift fire. And every time you say shift fire, and like obviously the G chief, the instructor, everyone, even me, we were all laughing because it just sounds funny. It's not making fun of him. It's just, he's saying shit fire, right? And so dude, that was a kind of a funny patrol, man. I mean, it ended up going fine. I did kind of take charge of it once we got out there because he just couldn't explain to the Americans, the G's, the guerrillas in this case were like, as you know, like they're usually like students that like quit, or maybe they were just like some, students down the road from the 82nd that like weren't doing anything. I don't know, but they had different volunteers for that, to be the
Yeah.
guerrillas. And he really couldn't communicate well with them. So I'm running around. But dude, I love doing that anyways. My favorite thing to do is like basically in all of the Q course stuff that you do, SUT is my favorite.
Yeah.
I love working in a small team and maneuvering, dude. Like that's why I ended up spending most of my career in the CRIF, as a SIF and then CRIF. I know we're not there and I'm jumping around, but it's a key point. I always liked being in a small team of violence, basically, you know,
Everybody
all
gets
kind
pushed
of
in a different
orchestra violence.
direction.
You're moving together, like, right. It's like sports with the ultimate, consequences.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can die.
Yeah, we're going to maneuver together. And if you don't do it well, or if you're not in shape, or if you're the weak link, or if you just don't do it right because you're not paying attention or whatever, you'll probably get one of us killed. That's what usually happens, right? Like it's the guy that not paying attention gets someone else killed.
Somebody else, yeah. Yeah,
Unfortunately, it's like the drunk guy in the accident, right? It's usually the drunk guy that walks away and the family of four died. It's like, damn, that sucks. Why did that happen? That's tragic. But that's what happens in the military too. And that's why these assessment and selection processes and these schools and all these things with these high washout rates, that's why they're there. You know what I mean? It's because you really can't afford to have a weak link. And even though you have all of that, all of those things in place, and all of the training and discipline and all that, bad things still happen. Basically, or the link that wasn't weak before is now because he's been running really hard for 5 years, and now he's going through a divorce and maybe a little bit of alcoholism, and he hasn't been telling anybody, but he's been taking a few extra pills to go to sleep at night, and it's starting to wear on him. You know what I mean? Like that's your
yeah.
5 year GWAT vet. Your 20 is like, you know, half of us are like getting out. It takes us a year or two just to kind of like figure out what we're doing. Like, whoa, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
it's a
then
rough
you
life,
have to
man.
hit 30. I mean, I have friends that are still in and have 30 plus. Dude, I don't, no idea how they're doing it, how you do that. I mean, really. I mean, I don't mean achieve that rank. I just don't know how you stay in and stay focused on the military for that long. I mean, I did 20, but dude, honestly, it was the last like two were wearing on me. But again, I'm bouncing around. But um, yeah, 30-year careers plus, those are absolutely insane, man. Those guys that are doing that. Half these guys get out and just like die. You know what I mean? Like it's so stressful on you. I mean, honestly, the military is a stressful life, and the special ops are particularly stressful, especially during
It,
wartime. You know?
you get addicted to that lifestyle, right? And you just keep feeding off of it, and then you're scared of losing it, so you just keep going and going and going. Like my sergeant major, I thought he was going to retire in 2000, 16, 17, and I talked to him not too long ago. He goes, "Yeah, everybody in front of me just keeps retiring, so I'll just keep going, I guess, until I'm done." And he's hit 30 now, and he's like, "I'm done." So
Yeah.
that's it. That's a long time. That's a fucking long time. It's something people can't wrap their head around, right? Because you do a normal job and you stay there for a few years and then you go do something else. But it's something you can't describe to people, the lifestyle in the military. And then you've got these people around you all like minded, or especially in our community, right? Regular Army, that's one thing. And I wanted to ask you about that. Like, what was your perception of the military at this point? Because you're an X-ray coming in, you got basic AIT, the Q course, now you graduate and you get your beret, your E5, Green Beret, but you don't know anything about the
Yeah.
military, right? So what was your, because now, knowing now, how the military works, but then what was your perception of the military?
Oh, dude, just wild. I mean, by the way, can I say this? I go straight into the SIF, C11,
Oh,
which is
okay.
so not only is X-ray like a new thing, but somehow we were like some of the first few X-rays. I wasn't the first. There was a few guys before me. I won't say names. They're my buddies. Shout out
Yeah.
to them out there if they're listening. But part
For
of that
those
early
listening at
group,
home, for those listening at home, the SIF is a direct action specific team in first group.
yes, it was basically like a tier two, like um extension of an SMU mission. Not
Mhm.
the entire SMU, of course, but a few of their particular missions we served a critical role in, and therefore we got specialized training and funding and missions basically based off of that. We would be on a very short like notice. So when I first got there, honestly, they still had pagers, but I'm not even joking. But then they got these flip phones, and so I had to carry
Yeah.
this little Nokia flip phone everywhere I went, and I couldn't go anywhere where they didn't have service, dude. Because if that phone went off and I wasn't there, that was my ass. And by the way, it'll all tie in together because one of the first times we got alerted, yeah, like when young guys were still out at the bar or whatever in Okie, that was a huge problem, man. Like they went out smoke. That was like one of the few times I saw an SF where like they actually like smoked the shit out of some like staff sergeant, like E5s, E6s, because Yeah, you just don't see that a lot, really. And it's like if you're not cutting it right, you'll get
No.
like counsel, or you'll just get booted off the team, basically.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of guys like team sergeants making the guys do push-ups, or but man, yeah, you miss an alert back in them days, big deal, right? So we had a no notice alert mission, a real world mission, and honestly, it mostly involves guns and explosives and counterterrorism type of work, CQB, advanced urban combat, things of that nature. Depending on the audience, I could go into more, but you go through Sephardic training, which the acronym's ridiculous. It's Special Forces Advanced Reconnaissance Target Acquisition and Exploitations Techniques course. So, anyways, Sephardic is what we call it. And all of those words just mean that you go and you shoot in a variety of situations and teams and missions, mostly in like close quarters battle situations, hostage rescue type situations, and in some cases in like nuclear, biological, or chemical warfare situations where you might have to be wearing specialized gear, masks, peppers, things like that. But the bottom line is we shot and blew shit up a lot. And do all Green Berets do that? Yes, but in the SIF, which became the CRIF later, we did a lot more of that specialized training, basically.
And you
Still
went to
structured
this as
like
a new guy.
but yeah. And the structure's gone back and forth. I'm still friends with some of those guys. I don't even know what they're calling them at this point. I don't even. It might be classified. I really don't even know. Honestly, I know it was SIF when I first went there in 2005. It was CRIF when I went back in 2017, and it's been a whole slew of things in between and after. So I don't keep up with it, but it's
I had
basically our
somebody.
little version of a dare I say, an SMU, a specialized unit that's forward in Okinawa, Japan, to handle things that might happen somewhere in Asia or the Pacific that we couldn't reach from back here because we're just so far away, basically.
Yeah. It's the name changes a few things, and I had somebody come on and they told me they didn't think it was still going, and then I saw a Facebook post the other day, and a Marine unit had tagged the SIF, on a Facebook post. So I guess it's still a thing, and it's known that it's out there now.
I can kind of explain this. It might be boring to some, but if the guys are military, I mean, they might be interested in this. So the Marine Corps calls the SIF something different than us, even though it has a similar mission. It's their own like ospreys, basically their own little package. Sometimes it would involve the CRIF when I was out there. Sometimes it would not. Sometimes it's not a SIF at all. It's just a thing that's out there in the fleet. So what I'm saying is that's not a specialized unit that's on a mission, pager kind of thing, but it is a real deal. It is a thing that will respond out there from the fleet, right? So what I'm getting at is those guys will often launch those ospreys from the boats for something like that, humanitarian aid, or perhaps a crisis situation where you're going to go pick up a few people from a remote outpost from an embassy or something like that. The CRIF, it stopped becoming the CRIF while I was still there. I believe this is right around the time I was having my midlife crisis and COVID was happening, and people were falling off the wings of planes in Afghanistan, and all my friends, seemed to be kind of going through it as well with me. In the middle of that, they were getting rid of the CRIF. And what government does when they get rid of something is they come in and say, "We're going to optimize you. Prepare for optimization." It sounds kind of cool. You're like, "Cool, optimize, great." Optimize means they're going to take your shit away. Bottom line. Are we allowed to curse on here?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Hell yeah. I can't talk if I can't curse. So optimizing the government means they're going to take your shit away. And that's what they did. They came in and optimized this, meaning they took our special funding and all of and basically the mission sets. The mission letter is what tied the specialized funding for that. And when they pulled that mission set, obviously the funding just fell out. So it's like you have a debit card that no longer has any money in it. And so we still had all this gear and these special weapons, and now there's no maintenance for them. I mean, they figured a lot of stuff out. I don't want to go into anything specific because but that was part of the process. They don't still have maintenance issues. By the way, I wanted to clarify, this is a few years ago. We were working through when the systems were first falling through. But now they've rechanged it, and I believe the last thing I heard it called was a CTAC. I don't believe that's classified at all. I think that's just what they're calling it. If they're not still calling it that, then they're going to rename it something else. But it was CTAC
It
when I
always
was out
changes.
there.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what it stood for. I think it was Critical Threats Advisory
Some
company or something. Yeah.
some
So
general or some colonel or
yeah.
some generals changes it so they can have their stamp on it, and things will move around. So what's it like, PCSing? You're brand new to the army. You've never been to a unit. Now we're leaving Fort Bragg and we're going to Japan. What's that like? And you walk into the team room with some bad motherfuckers. What's going through your mind now?
Well, the damnedest thing was I had just bought a truck in the Q course. And then I got orders to Oki. You don't know where basically you don't know where your orders are going to be when you get out of the course. I mean, you know based off your language what group you're going to, but in this case we have a forward battalion. So, anyways, I got Oki orders, and I wanted to do that. Yeah, I was excited to do it, but I had to drive. I drove that truck all the way to Southern California and left it with my parents for 4 years, from Fort Bragg all the way to Southern California. So that was my PCS, driving across America, just seeing stuff, and then yeah, I went out there, dude. The culture was way different, man. Everyone like looked about like I do now. Like when I first went there, everyone was like, you know, at least like early to mid 30s, and everyone was like big as fuck, dude.
Yeah.
I'm a big dude. I was like one of the smaller ones. Like when I got there, I was like, wow. I wasn't used to going somewhere and being like one of the smallest dudes in the room, and that's how it was in the Criff when I got there. But don't worry. You get there, you're gonna start working out. And by the way, it's not about being big. They just happened to be big when I went. I don't know. Everyone just happened to be real big when I went there. I saw a whole cycle of evolution of things change throughout my career where then all of a sudden I went back there and everyone was real small and doing like triathlon stuff. So it's like it totally changes, based off the culture, basically the fitness culture of the leaders and the folks there. Let's be honest. Like your top team sergeants and stuff and your sergeant major and like your couple influential like maybe warrants and officers as well. But I just mean when it comes to PT, that's really an NCO driven thing. And if the guys are all jacking heavy steel, it's because the team sergeants all wanted to jack heavy steel. Let's be honest. So when I got there, like everybody basically, jacked heavy steel and did CrossFit and did like MMA and shotguns. And like that was like, and we ran and ruck too, of course. But I just mean, everyone was big and older, and it was, probably a little intimidating, to be honest. I mean, you can't go in and be intimidated. But of course I was a young guy, but I knew basically to do what I was told. And dude, like for whatever it's worth, I'm kind of a performer, and not in every sense, but like I'm sometimes a procrastinator. I'm sometimes not the best planner. I'm something like I have got a lot of faults, but there's also times where when I get a lot of pressure put on me, I've found that I will step up, and that's a lot of SF guys, by the way. Like you have that quality to like step it up when you need to, right? Like survival instinct kind of thing. It's like, oh shit, it's real now, and then I kick it in gear. And so, yeah, when I went out there and I was extremely challenged in new things, by the way, I didn't grow up shooting guns. I didn't grow up doing any of this stuff. So, and by the way, those older, big, badass guys that I looked up to and wanted to impress and everything, they did not like me, nor did they believe that 18 X-rays should be there, period. Uh, some of these guys didn't believe there should be an 18 X-ray program. And the fact that, they had to go to, Lewis or something and then go out to Oki and then try out for the Criff and then finally get a Sephardic slot and then go over to the Criff and then make it there. And by the way, they hold the standards there too. If you have like one AD or, one ND or you miss a movement or something, back in them days especially, it was like, you're gone. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a no-go. There were certain rules that you just don't break. And like missing movement was one. Like you can't, I mean, you can show up fucking drunk. You just can't not show up, basically. Um, but they didn't want me there, man. And I mean, I don't blame them. I get it. Honestly, I look at myself later in my career. I guess if I had a bunch of like young, like 21-year-old dudes showing up that look like little kids, it would be weird for me too. I'd be like, what are we supposed to do with this guy? That's my Bravo. Like, how's he? But guess what? These X-rays became leaders across the formation. I mean, we have sergeant majors and CSMs and warrants. I don't know if there's any like CW5s yet, but I mean, I know there's several 3s and 4s that were X-rays before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and definitely. I mean, your team sergeant ranks are filled with them now because there was that period where we were mostly filling the ranks of SF with X-rays, basically, and so now all those guys are team sergeants and sergeant majors and whatever now. So it was a successful program where the regiment probably would not have lasted um, very long if we hadn't had it. The older guys, like I said, even when I first came in, dude, the average age. I mean, I'm not saying this as a fact, like don't look it up as a stat, but what I saw on the team when I first showed up, the average age was like 33, 34. It was not a young man's game. And in fact, a lot of these guys were much older. And before 9/11, really, you could be older. It wasn't that big of a deal. You know what I mean? Like, not that guys didn't train hard, but there wasn't really so many deployments and hard missions coming up where you're going to be in kit all the time. That just wasn't happening a lot. And then once 9/11 happened, it was, and long before we figured out these op tempos and, all this stuff. Basically, we were just deploying back to back to back to back to back. You know,
Yeah.
um, in my case, when I first got there, all over Asia, and which sucked because I joined again to go to Iraq, and here I am. It's like a couple of years in, I've already been at Sephardic. I've already been, on the in the CRIF and on the or SIF. It was at the time. Been on the team for a while, year and a half, and we finally get noticed that we're going to go to Iraq. And so I was like really stoked about that. I had like 4 years in the army before I finally got to go serve in the war that I like joined for. And by the way, I joined for because that was going on. I didn't have any. To this day, I don't know what the hell we did in Iraq or why we went. I don't
To
think any
quote
of us did,
to
but
to
I
quote
don't
one
even
of
want
to
to
quote
go
one
down
of
that
my to quote one of my previous guests on Iraq, nothing. You guys did and accomplished nothing while you were there. Well, you did a lot of things, but you accomplished nothing, is what one of my previous guests said.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, you probably terrorized a lot of people, dude. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that when you send young people with guns and they're scared out in the middle of the desert across the world, and you tell everyone that there's bad people over there, or they just believe that. And by the way, there is some bad people. Some of those people are trying to kill your ass, like 100%, and they're mixed in with all the other people. You know, it's just a recipe for disaster, basically. I mean, an insurgency, a counterinsurgency campaign in a faraway land, it almost like never works when you're reading history. You know what I mean?
No.
Whenever an empire tries to do like coin across the world in some far land that they don't understand, it almost never works unless you just basically subjectify the place. And we weren't quite ready to do that in Iraq or Afghanistan. So it was either stay there and colonize it or turn it over. But the question is, what would have success looked like, basically? Because I've been hearing this a lot lately, man. It's on my mind. I keep hearing people say we lost Iraq and lost Afghanistan. I mean, they're mostly civilians, to be honest, but some of these people are even educated. I go, lost? How do you classify lose? You call that a military loss? I don't believe that. I
How
don't think
so?
we ever had a. I don't think we ever had a mission, an attainable mission, and therefore we never quite obtained it. In Afghanistan's case, we did it for 20 years with 20 different generals, right? 20 different plans, 21-year wars without a real in state. And I mean one that you can achieve, not just good ideas, like things like less terrorism or something like. No, like what can we actually achieve over there? And what were we trying to achieve? We don't know. So we could have been there forever. Just fucking shooting each other, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you're
Doesn't
saying since there was no defined end state, we were just floundering there and kind of hanging out. There's nothing to win or lose.
Yeah. I was a kid at the time and I was a special forces soldier and I wanted to go to combat. So I wasn't necessarily thinking about all this at the time. But, in hindsight, of course, I'm running around over there in Iraq in the early years. You know, it's from a military standpoint, it was a success. From a foreign policy standpoint, I suppose it was a complete disaster. In fact, I think it's probably destabilized the whole region, especially the fact that we went in the way we did and then pulled out the way we did. We do things very abruptly. America like flips switches on. You know what I mean? And we flipped that switch on and then we like just flipped it off. I was there. I mean, it was like 2011. I was in Afghanistan, but I mean, when they were shutting down everything in Iraq, like literally just like I said before, when they flipped that switch off back at the Beltway, like the funding just stops. And then you're like, all right, what do I do with all this shit? Wow. But anyways, to leave Afghanistan or Iraq abruptly, I was in Afghanistan in 2011 when they left Iraq. Obviously, they left Afghanistan about 10 years later. Again, abruptly. We don't seem to do much planning when we go in or out of things, like because we can bring so much military force and let's face it, like so much economic and logistical capacity to bear. Like that's what America can do crazily better than everybody else. It's amazing to witness when you go to the other side of the world. And I mean, literally, they're popping up ice cream stands in the same place where, guys 3 months ago were fighting to take that airfield or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just see that everywhere. It's wild. The economy behind war and the DoD, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of, yeah, there's our military goes in, fucks shit up, and then there's a lot of businesses that go in, rebuild, put businesses back, contracts. Then there's some politicking going on there and some things behind the scenes of who knows who and who's possibly making decisions at a high level to influence other people that are also at a high level. So it's an unfortunate situation, though, right? Because we go into these places and we lose friends and teammates, and then it's over, and you go, "Well, what the fuck were we even there for?" You know?
Yeah, I'm sorry to say I felt that way. Part of part of this whole thing in 2021, it wasn't just COVID. It wasn't just like the fact that I was in a windowless office and was no longer on the teams, and it wasn't just any one thing. But dude, part of it was that, man. I was having a really hard time coping with the way we left Afghanistan, and not even just that. It was more so, like you said, what it made me think and feel afterwards. Like it wasn't important anyways. I lost a good part of myself over there. I'll tell you that in my 3 trips there, and I definitely lost some friends over there. And I definitely did. I did different missions. I mean, one of them was like living with the Afghan people, man. Like the VSO mission in 2011. I lived with Afghans for fucking like 6 months or something like that. I can't remember, 6 7 months. And I developed a real love for those people. I mean, really, I got close to them, the kids and everything. It's just like you can see the girls starting to go to school and starting to be able to express themselves and start to get little positions and stuff like that. And then, we just kind of like left. And it's like, well, is it America's job to do that? No. In fact, I'm not saying that. But if we're going to stay there for 20 years, that's what happens. Human beings are interacting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Relationships are being built. And we saw it, dude. People coming together, veterans, right? Helping to get, different interpreters and their families out and stuff like that. But it made me feel like, oh, it wasn't important in the first place. Wow. And for some reason, once that war was over, all of this energy, there was just like this GWAT buzz I was on, dude. I hope like somebody can relate to this. It was just, it was the cycle of training, deploying, coming back, partying, whatever, train, deploy, school, party, and it was just nonstop. You know what I mean? And we were just running around the world, dude. Like, it was a fun time. I mean, honestly, it wasn't all like bad. I mean, guys stayed in like 5-star hotels and getting like, Marriott Platinum status in some cases. And in other cases, like you're in a ditch in Afghanistan getting shot at and you haven't showered in, 3 weeks or whatever. It's like, you never knew what you were going to get into. But that momentum and everything, it just seemed to change. You know what I mean? Like, and the culture was shifting, and SF, special ops budget was starting to go down a little bit, or at least the way we were appropriating that money was changing. You know what I mean? As I was getting out there, there was a lot of talk of like how we're going to get ammo for the range. That never was talked about, dude. 12 years ago, the biggest problem was like, how are we going to get rid of all this ammo? We have to get rid of it, and we don't know how. You know what I mean? Can you bring some more guys with more guns, please? We have to shoot this shit. So, but my point being, that downtime made me really stop and think, and I was having a hard time processing the wars. I haven't become some person that's against it or whatever. No shame. I'd go live it all again, man. But the truth is, it makes you think when you get a little bit older, and you're like, oh yeah, we're sending young people off to war with guns. Like, why are we doing that? What are we trying to accomplish? And I think if we can't answer that, we should be careful about sending young people off to foreign lands with guns. I don't think they should be there just as a deterrent, basically. I think once you're committing forces onto a ground like Afghanistan or Iraq, I think you should have a clear end state in mind, as an older adult that thinks about these things. But as a young man, I didn't know that. I thought I would just run around Iraq and shoot whatever tried to shoot at me and just try to survive and do our best and go home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's like when you see on the news today, they're like, we need to send American troops to Ukraine to support that. It's like, why? Like, what, do
Really?
you know what you're saying? Do you know what war actually is? I don't know what war is. I have a pretty good idea what it's done to my friends in our country and the military. And there's so many other costs of sending soldiers to the population to actually bring war on another country, and the downstream effects of, yeah, that's, you're going to ruin those people. Because I don't know if you saw that post. It's been going through the socials the last couple of weeks. It's that, all the truth is that all soldiers or veterans pay with their lives. It's just some pay right away, and some pay over the course of a lifetime, and that's fucking true, right? And if you send people down range, some people will die. That's terrible, but somebody will die a slow death, and they'll take it out on their family. They'll take it out on the rest of their life on people that they don't even know. So when I hear that, like, oh, we need to send this, like, do you know what you're saying? Do you actually know what you're saying when you think of that? So what do you think of that?
What were they saying specifically? Sorry.
No, in the when they say we need to send U.S. troops or support
Yeah,
to
to
bring
Ukraine.
war,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, dude. So where I stand kind of is like it's an interesting one because like I was in like special ops and I know like what they're capable of, and I know there's times where we need to do like certain specialized missions, surgical strike missions, for instance. Like those are necessary, right? Any sort of like response to crisis, response to chemical CWMD threat, basically, or something like that. And then there's also things like basically what we do in SF, which is like buying with them through, foreign policy stuff, FID, stuff like that, foreign internal defense. Sorry, so that's what we're doing with like not necessarily with our JSETs, but with those programs that we go overseas and we train with our friends and allies. We're building a relationship and we're building capacity together to influence things. Like I get all of that. So those things are important. But when we're talking about sending like a division of like infantry into something like that, I mean, I strongly disagree with it. I mean, I don't know what they're looking at sending, but you know, I don't think that it needs to be really any. You don't really have to have advisors in Ukraine to advise Ukraine at this point. I mean, you know what I mean? And again, I don't think our nation's been very clear on what we want for over there, right? And unless I'm
yeah,
wrong, I don't kind of like looking at it like we kind of don't want to like poke the bear too much, like we kind of like don't want to poke, Putin too much. And then I saw we were kind of stern with Zelensky lately. I don't know if you saw that. Very stern, almost bullyish. We made fun of his clothes a little bit and stuff in public. I thought that was weird, but whatever policies and things that are behind that's driving all of that. I wish they would come out with and say, because if I knew what they were trying to accomplish, I could probably, think of a good military package. I don't think it's going to be to go actually fight, with guns on the ground against ground forces. I think that's why that would be a silly move to me.
yeah.
And honestly, it would only make that war never ending. It would make it last a lot longer. It would make us get much further from a place where we can find peace over there, if we're even at a place where we can do that. But if there's any end in sight, it doesn't involve us deploying offensive forces into Ukraine. I don't see. You know what I mean? Like basically, Russia's not going to go. Oh my God, the U.S. is deploying troops. I'll just like quit. I don't think it's that simple, right?
No, there's other things going on at play there. As long as the Russians aren't bombing us, I think that's the end state. I just hope we don't get to that point. But I do. So you're you're basically a door kicking Green Beret, right, on the team.
Yeah.
And then first, what is an 18 Fox? What is the role of an 18 Fox on an operational detachment alpha?
18 Fox is an intelligence sergeant. Traditionally serves as the assistant ops, also usually as like the number two guy. Not always though. Like when I went to the Fox course, I was young, so when I got out, I wasn't necessarily like the backup team sergeant, but I was the Fox. So it could be that way. Um, but basically, most of what I did was targeting. During the war years, I was doing a lot of targeting, building target intelligence packets, basically gathering intel from across different platforms, which include human intelligence, literally like talking to bad guys and them going, yeah, I'm not making promotion in the system or whatever. I'm going to rat my friends out or whatever the case is. They find some reason that they rat on their friends basically, or we coerce that out of them somehow. Um, and then you can layer that with other special intelligence we have. There's many platforms, not to like go into all of them, but I mean, obviously everyone knows there's like a cell phone, like your PEDs, even this, everything's like can be traced, So there's a lot of different things you can do to layer, but basically what you're trying to do is find a bad guy, develop a pattern of life, and see if we can pinpoint his location to go and roll him up, to do a raid in the middle of the night or whenever his pattern of life is. Basically, if we can find what we call a bed down location, like a place where this guy stops on his pattern and relaxes and goes to sleep or whatever, fucks his girlfriend, whatever it is, if he stops for long enough for us to get him, that's the spot. That's what you're trying to find. But there's lots of different ways to target, as you know, man. I mean, like, it's not always like, to do a raid in the middle of the night. Like, there's ways you can target things for good effects. Like, we look at an area and it's like, oh, what can we do to really help these people and reach out to them? Oh, well, they don't have clean water. Okay, so we go build a well, and while we're out there, we do some outreach programs and we establish some relationships with them. We're trying to condition that area for something, a new plan or new op or whatever we're trying to do there. Um, I would call that targeting as well. Like, you're going to build you're going to build some form of intelligence on it, establish what you're trying to get, layer your intelligence, and then develop a plan to go execute. So targeting was most of it. Foxes have a lot of like regular roles, like administrative roles. Like, we have to be the nerds that, like, tell you to renew your security clearance and like do your, some of your training things. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
do your security classifications training and stuff like that. Obviously, anyone that's been through SEER school knows that there's like certain data for like your what do you call that system? I can't. We've used different ones now, but usually you have like bio data and like a pass, phrase and a code, and like your bona fides and stuff like that, like old like blood shit type of shit. We don't do that as much anymore, I know, but like we definitely have those systems, like the joint personnel recovery stuff. I just can't remember the name of that system for some reason. So you have been out for a little
I
while,
can't
but
remember either.
so honestly, Fox did a great job in Garrison, dude, because it was like you don't do a lot, but when you deploy, like you're usually the busiest dude on the team. Like, and even when I was a warrant, me and the Fox were up because I was a warrant and I was a level 3 doing human. And I'm still doing targeting. I was a Fox, so we were up the most late at nights, reading and developing and building target packages and just yeah, basically for folks if they don't understand, it's like, if you want to go out and have a impactful mission, you have to have intelligence, basically. And if you don't, you're just going to go out and just start, you're just going out and reacting to contact, basically. So the good fox will stay up late and make sure that not only is the team protected, but that we have a good understanding of the area, the battle space we're going into, and that we understand the enemy, and that we've actually got good enough intelligence on the enemy or the mission or whatever we're trying to influence to have a successful mission. I mean, to put it simply, you know what I mean? You do that by layering intelligence. Um, but the Fox job, yeah, when you're in Garrison, dude, it's kind of you're kind of the least hardworking guy. It's kind of like the Delta, man. Like in the team room, the Delta's they only need the Delta basically we need a Motrin or something like, right.
You got to pack the A bags, man.
Admin, yeah, right. But
So why'd you go
yeah,
for 18 Fox though? Was it told to you that you were going to go, or did you pick that?
honestly, kind of. I was kind of voluntold, and you can't be forced to go there. No, but you know how it is. There was
Yep.
a slot. I was the one available. Sergeant Major wanted a Fox on the B team, basically, and I had done 4 years on the team almost. 4 years on the ODA that I was on, and so he tried to package it like he was hooking me up. He's like, "I'm gonna get you Fox, get you this job over here. You're gonna get promoted." By the way, I was E6. Everyone makes E7 in SF as long as you don't like, as long as you don't like literally get a DUI or maybe even still you might get one. But everyone makes E7 almost no matter what in SF unless you really really fuck up. And so basically he kind of forced me, dude, to go to the course and then go to the B team for my last 6 months I was out there or something. But nonetheless, it was gratifying because, like I said, shortly after that, I ended up going over to, third battalion. We go to Afghanistan, and I'm using those skills, like actually applying some of the things I learned in there. I'm like, wow, cool.
What year was this?
Oh, so yeah, so I went to Iraq in 2007, and then again in 2008 with the CRIF. They were called the SIF at the time. I'll quit saying that. Sorry.
First
Um,
Battalion.
First, yeah, C11. I was with C11. I was on 134. What was I saying? So after my second Iraq trip, I'd been in the CRIF for 4 years. Being C11 for 4 years, and my time was coming to an end. I knew soon, so he kind of forced me to go to the Fox course, which you might know it's like 5 months long or 4 months long. It's really long.
Yeah, it's
So by
good
the time
clip.
I get out of it, I only ended up doing like, and then I had the PCS. So basically, I only did a couple months of the B team anyways. Like, but whatever. He won. Sergeant Major wins when you're in E6, dude.
Yep, that's how it
But
goes.
then I PCS to Lewis basically right after that in 2010.
Okay. When you said you went to the third battalion?
Yeah, and it was kind of weird because I was getting bounced around. I kind of went to second, but I never got established there. And they sent me basically. There was another thing popped up, and I got voluntold by another sergeant major to go do it. And it was a language school in Montana. And I was like, "What?
Okay.
What language? Like Pashto school in Montana." I'm like, "How long is it?" He's like, "6 weeks." I was like, "How the fuck do you learn a language in 6 weeks?" He's like, "I don't know. Just go do it, man. Like, you're this guy. You're doing it." I'm like, "Okay." So I go over to the language lab to learn some about this thing. And they go, "No, it's 6.5 months, dude." So I had just PCS to Lewis, and now I'm going TUI to Montana for 6.5 months. And I went out there for a whole summer, dude. A summer in Montana is a beautiful time. Let me tell you, I had summer of my life out there. I was a single
Learned how to speak.
E7, dude, with no debt, no bills, no kids, and just living out there in Montana, dude, getting TDY and studying the language.
Did you learn how to speak Pashto or?
I got pretty
Oh,
good at it.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
Did
teach
you
you
ever
too.
use it again after that?
In Afghanistan, but I mean, every once in a while, dude, I'll get in an Uber or something, and a guy will be Afghan, and I'll try to practice a little bit. But no, not really, dude. I don't really use it for anything. I don't know what I would do for it now. I mean, they only speak it basically in like Talibanistan. I mean, it's basically what it is now, Afghanistan. It's like, what would I do? Go
Yeah.
do business deals over there? I'm like, no, those motherfuckers don't want to do a business deal with me. I know that.
All right. Well, maybe that. Yeah. Well, that's the way things goes, right? Because I was a tasking NCO, and I'd get shit in, and I'd go, Sergeant Major, what is this? And he goes, I don't know. Just go to Charlie Company and grab somebody and send them. And I go, what do you mean? He says, go see so and so and tell him to give you a guy. And I was like, he's got to go to Mongolia. I was like, yeah, well, he says, well, fuck him, we got to go. And that's just the way it is. Sergeant Major goes, somebody's going, and that's it. But that's the Army, right? You have to do things you don't want to do sometimes. So what was it like getting back to Fort Lewis, Maine? Because you hadn't been to group proper before this, had you?
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fort Lewis. It was rainy and gray. The culture was different. I was in Okinawa, which is a tropical island. We're either in kit, kicking doors, or like in board shorts and flip flops. Like it was just kind of relaxed, basically. Like we train hard and like. But anyways, you go back there and you're by the flagpole, right? It's just different culture. So yeah, it was a lot of like haircuts and boots and corrections and like just the stuff I wasn't used to dealing with in Oki. But that's fine, man. Fort Lewis is great. I ended up spending 7 years there. I went to Afghanistan 3 times from there. Um, I got married there. Divorced since. We'll talk about that later, but
That's
um,
okay.
it happens. Hey, we made it 12 years in SF, dude. That is like everyone says it's not a successful marriage. I did 12 years in active duty SF. Deployed all the time during wartime. PCS 3 different times with the same person. Like I feel like it was pretty good success. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
it's just difficult. Difficult life and people grow apart. Happens to a lot of us in this community, man.
that it does. I mean, you're not, I say this a lot, you're not infantry until your first divorce, and you're not special forces until your second divorce. Um, there definitely is a propensity for SF guys to get divorced more than anybody else. But that's the life, right? Because and it's hard to describe to people that you get addicted to just saying yes to everything in the team and on the teams or in battalion or whatever. Somebody asked you to do something, and you're gonna
You want to say yes?
99 out of 100 times it's gonna say yes, unless you physically just can't do it. And that takes a lot of courage too, to say I can't. I just got to take a knee, and most guys won't do it because they're the fear of being shunned, that they can't keep up the pace of things anymore, or they've ruined their mental health, or they got a drinking problem, or that they're trying to deal with their personal problems with alcohol or other means. And that's too bad, right? You know, and you'd see that guys that are just trying to
I've
drink
been
their
it.
problems away.
I've been the one.
Yeah, me
I've
too.
done I'll tell you, in SF, in special forces, and pretty much in the military writ large, but definitely in the soft community. At least when I was in, it was very work hard, play hard culture. You know, like we were very disciplined in training and all of that. And we could also be very almost apply the same veracity and tenacity to our drinking and partying
Yeah, we're going to be
escapades.
the best at it, right? We're
You
going to
know,
be
I
the
did that
best
for 20
drinkers.
years, man. Like my body, I've put it through the ringer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just working it really hard and then also working it hard with the the fun stuff after the deployment or whatever. So but you make a good point, dude. The one thing basically to get through selection, this I just there's a kid from here, he's the 19th group. So I'm here in Texas. We have some 19th group guys. He just got back from selection. He's going on the Q course. And I was basically like, dude, it's really simple. Just be a good teammate, don't quit. And honestly, good teammates don't quit. So I mean, like, just be a good teammate. Like that'll get you so far out there, man. Really. Um, and you can get through the whole course that way, really, barring an injury or something you just can't do. I mean, really, it's that simple, right? If you don't quit and you just stay focused, I call that being a good teammate, man. Like being there for your team and yourself where you need to be. Um, you're gonna pass, or you're at least not gonna have any regrets about whatever you do. You know. The problem is on the flip end is when you lose the team, I suppose. And like you say, man, we've been suffering. We've been putting the team first for so long. We've been putting the team, and I'll just wrap the mission and the team in together. I'm calling it the team. We've been putting the team for so long that we forgot to take time out to put ourselves first sometimes, you know, take care of ourselves. We've been ignoring those little nagging injuries. We've been ignoring that, festering alcohol problem. We've been ignoring maybe that little addiction that's kind of popped up. We don't talk about that much because nobody in the military does drugs ever. But it does
Allegedly.
pop up because there's pills and stuff shit they give you some of these pills and they're addicting too, so
Yeah.
it does happen, man. And we've all, I mean, any one of us that have done significant time in that, and I mean, if someone says I'm wrong, I'm going to say they're the minority, but I did 20 straight years of that. And most people I know use some pain pills at some point, man. I mean, look what we're putting our bodies and everything through. It got to the point where, people were popping. I mean, it could be something simple like, you heard of tramadol? Like, dude, we were living on this tramadol shit. And by the way, because it was like legal, I mean, it was not only legal, but it wasn't considered a narcotic. So, but it gets you pretty high. You know what I mean? Lie. It's still a, um, not a benzo. What do they call it? It's still a synthetic opioid.
Benzodiazepine.
No, it's a synthetic opioid of some sort. It's just not as bad as the other ones, basically.
Okay.
It's synthetic, so it's like it's not actual opium. So, but anyways, it's now considered a controlled substance. It didn't used to be, and I mean, I don't know how this shit was just running around the team's rampant when I came in. Man, everyone was hurt. It's not their fault.
What
I
I'll
mean, you're
say
taking
about
one from the
that,
down the line enough, so we start popping a few other ones, and then hey, some guys do a cycle, and then before you know it, it's like, dude, all right, well, you did some roids on a deployment, you got off, you took the stuff to help you get off the roids. You did some pills because you're in pain, and then you took some pills to go to sleep, and then before you know it, I mean, think about that. You've done 4, 5, 6 drugs, like without even thinking about it. Now they're all pretty innocent, right? We haven't victimized anybody, but over 20 years, what I wish to warn is when you open that door, because what you're doing really is you're masking things. You're not fixing them. Um, eventually, it will get. If you leave that door open enough, man, like you never know what's going to crawl through. In my case, later in my career, dude, I hate to say it, but I want to share this story because I'm out now. I'm not ashamed. I'm just going to say, like, dude, I had some addiction issues, man. It was mostly alcohol, to be honest, but alcohol is a really hard one to be addicted to, right? It's hard to sustain alcoholism because you feel like shit every morning and stuff like that is what I'm getting at. Like the basics. Like it's hard to get in the gym because I feel like crap because I'm drinking all the time. So I find I'd take a little something in the morning. If I had a little Adderall or maybe a little benzo or maybe a little half of each. I feel good. I could go in there and make the meeting and go to the gym and do whatever. And it's like before I know it, I'm doing that a lot, and your tolerance is going up, and you need to take a little more. Like you can see how innocently this could happen over time too. Dude, by the time COVID happens, dude, all that stuff, all of it hit me at once, man. Every one of my demons hit me at once. By then, I was taking pills and drinking and doing other stuff sometimes. I mean, not often, but dude, honestly, yes. You know, I'd be lying if I said I never went out partying at any point, not on a mission, but hey, in between, on leave or something, and someone put a line in front of me and I didn't fucking try it. I'll just put it that way. And if I'm alone out there, then okay, because I'll just allegedly, it's happened to
Allegedly.
others. Now, that didn't make it an addiction though. It was the pattern of doing it like that. And then, by the way, it's hard to get a hold of these Adderalls and things, so you start finding things that are like them. You know, one of the things that's very like it is methamphetamine, unfortunately. My goodness. And that word, when I say the word meth, sounds so fucking bad. But dude, I literally got to the point at one point I was so fucked up. Like I said, dude, I didn't know if I was up, down, or sideways. I was neither sleeping or awake. I was not in control. I was neither sober nor drunk. I was neither anything. I was lost. You know, I lost my faith, my everything. And dude, I got to the point where I was snorting meth, dude. Not all the time, but oh yeah, I did it, man. You know, I went from being I mean, pretty much you know, like not to sound corny, but a super soldier. You know, from outside looking in, if you didn't know, you would say someone that did 20 years in, you know, elite special forces, made rank, right, E1 all the way to CW3. Like you'd say, that's a pretty damn good soldier. You know, I would agree with that. I was fucking completely dedicated and everything for, you know, I'll say at least 18 years of my career. You know what I mean? Completely disciplined and focused. And somehow, right around 2021, and again, it wasn't just COVID, it wasn't just Afghanistan, it wasn't just that everything hurt, and I've been ignoring, you know, not only my past traumas, but you know, my addictions and my failing marriage and all these aches and pains I had all throughout my body, dude. I had tension throughout my body, like not the kind you want, like the bad kind, from my feet all the way up through my spine, dude. Like everything. After 20 years of living that life, dude, I beat up everything. You know, not like my body's ruined, but I mean, I beat it all up so bad it just shutting down on me, dude. You know, and in the midst of all of that, you know, in your weakest times, you could fall so far out of character. You know, I did. It's good for me to get it out there too. I don't care if someone wants to judge, because I ain't the only one doing it that did it. You know what I mean? And I ain't the only one going through it. And some people are
I'm
out
for sure
now and
not
they're
going to
going
judge
through
you.
it. And if you're
I'm for sure not
suffering
going to judge you.
through a major transition in your life, I promise you this: no matter what your belief systems are, little temptations and bad things will just find a way to say, "Hey, you want to try this?" You know. And if you do believe in like good and evil spirits, like those evil spirits will some tempt you. If you don't believe in that, I'll just say when you're on a rotten luck streak, they can get worse real fast. You know what I mean? And something that never would have even popped into my life normally in this time of, you know, vulnerability and weakness, I let come into my life. And so for a short period, I was basically doing that. You know, it's kind of funny too. I thought I could balance it. I was like, oh, I'll just do a little before I go into the meeting, and then I'll be real attentive and I'll be energetic, and everyone will like it. And it was kind of working for a while. You know, like the scary thing about it is it almost works for a little while, and then you realize, like, no, I'm literally, you know, screwing up my life and my health. You know, and um, really, it was really what ended up getting to me was the alcohol, man. And it wasn't just alcohol. It was my PTSD. It was my untreated, you know, pain and depression and all that stuff. It was all of that. But what it was manifesting mostly in is I wanted to get drunk to escape it. The other stuff I would use to help me with basically the byproducts of getting drunk a lot, which are, you know, hangover early on, that's the obvious one. But when you're doing it habitually, you start getting addicted. Like I would, you know, I mean, really, like I was getting to the point where, you know, if I didn't drink, I like almost couldn't think and formulate sentences. I was shake, like, dude, the whole fucking 9 yards. And I didn't want to admit that. And I probably never have even really admitted that till now, man. But I had the whole 9 yards. Like, so I was taking other things to help me with that. And so what are you really doing at this point? Now you're in a circle of different addictions, right? Now I'm just doing it all basically. Now I'm not even in control. Um, and so that was about the time I did. I went into a rehab to get cleaned up. And then I went to treatment. for the PTSD, because you can't get treatment for. Sorry, I'm a little choked up because I haven't really admitted
You're good,
this.
man.
I've never
You're good.
admitted this to anybody. Sorry. So I wanted to get it out there today because I was like, man, I ain't gonna waste a podcast where some of my brothers might be listening, and if they could, if it could help them at all, that's what I want to do. But what I want to say is, it's really easy to slip into that. Is what I wanted to say. Like even a special forces guy that would never quit. Basically, I told you that was the only skill I had. Is I was a good teammate, and I never quit. Was never the fastest, strongest, none of that. But I believe everyone that served with me up, unless they were at the very end there, where I was losing my mind. I believe they would all say I was a very good teammate, and that's because I wouldn't quit. But dude, even that doesn't protect you. Like you were, you know what I mean? In this case, it only took just enough. A good friend of mine died. My grandma died. There was COVID. We were all shut down. By the way, we were locked down in Okinawa on a little island, and we weren't allowed to go even get fast food. Like there was nothing. It was different than here. I mean, I know it was bad here, but it was like real lockdown there. For one point in time, we just had to stay on the base, and so and then all this stuff just happened at once, dude. And that just I left that door open just enough, you know. And in my opinion, like it again, I never did drugs, but for sure, I probably tried a few cycles over the years on deployments. Maybe I was alone. And I probably took some pain pills and some other things. I probably wasn't alone doing that either. But I'm only here to talk about me. And over enough time, especially if, like, dude, I celebrated everything with drinking, bro. Every weekend when I got off, or every deployment I got off, or every school, if I had a bad day or a good day, or a school or an accomplishment, or got back from anything, was an excuse to drink, dude. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was a pattern of behavior being set that is still hard for me, to be honest. I still need to go out on Friday night and have like a drink. You know what I mean? It's really, I don't feel like it feels like it's like my my mechanism for like you did it, like your accomplishment, like your celebration, almost like you did well this week. Go
Like a
ahead, have a
treat.
drink, you know. But um, I never envisioned it would go that far, and it never will again. But pretty wild, dude. That I went from all of that, like very successful career. I mean, it's weird to talk about yourself that way, but I mean, honestly, I had a very successful career. Even after that happened, I got out of the facility. Like they're still wanting, like setting me up for promotion and next positions. And the truth was, it was me that I was like, I don't think I can handle it. Like I'm gonna go to brag and be on some general staff right now. I felt like I could barely handle what I had going on in my life, a few years back. So it was like I just needed like a break. And so it was a good idea for me to go ahead and mid board, and I had 20. So the wars were over. It just, I don't know, for whatever reason. It's like my mentor told me one time. He was like, "Dude," I go, how'd you know when it was time to hang it up?" And he goes, "You'll know." And I'm like, "Well, how?" And he goes, "Well, one day you're just not going to want to go to work anymore." Like he put it really simply, but it was so true, dude. One day I woke up one day, I didn't even want to go. I'm talking, I didn't want to go to it. Not just like, oh, I didn't want to do the job. I didn't even want to drive there. I was like, I don't even want to go. I was like, that's not a good. You can't be the special forces if you're feeling that way, right? Like I've never felt this way before. And so I decided it was time to retire, dude. I don't know if it was a mistake or not, but I got my 20 years successful career in. I managed to make some poor choices at the very end. I never got in trouble. I didn't get behind the wheel. I didn't do it like on duty or like shooting guns. I mean, I got to tell people I was sitting in an office, and I was doing this stuff at night and shit like that. But either way, I never suspected that. And that's what happens. And I know I'm not the only one, so hopefully sharing that helps. I was able to get completely clean off of all that shit. I don't do any drugs like that. I use some marijuana, various forms of cannabinoids, THCs and CBDs, CBGs. I find those things to be amazing. I don't find them to be drugs at all. But as far as the other things, nope, swore it off forever this time. Have the occasional drink though. That is my weakness, but I'm keeping it to like I'll tell you one thing I did about drinking. Man, I don't keep it in the house anymore, and I hope that advice helps somebody. I mean, it sounds really simple, but just not having it. If you think you have a drinking problem whatsoever, I mean, even if it's not severe, if you just go to the bar and have a few, but you come home and can't resist pouring another couple, because that's who I am. It's not that big a deal, but I'm gonna pour a couple more when I got one at home, dude. That's me, and so I had to just quit keeping it at home. I quit buying it basically. So I go have a few drinks out, and I come home, and that seems like that's fine. oh, yeah, I crave another drink, but I just don't do it because I don't have it in the house, you know. But simple advice, that little thing helped me a lot. Like, but I know this because there's a lot of folks basically that are looking to like, they don't want to completely quit drinking, but they're like, I'm drinking a little too much. It's affecting me at the gym. I mean, one place to start is just to stop buying it and take it to your house, right? I mean, that's the simplest solution. Really, just don't buy red wine, nothing. Just use that as a celebration when you go out to dinner with your significant other, your friends, but don't drink it home. But if you don't have a problem, obviously have fucking fun. I love bourbon, dude. That's my thing. I absolutely love bourbon. I can't stop it. I just can't have it in my house.
I sympathize with you, man. I am on Saturday 1 year sober
Oh,
myself.
congrats,
I
brother.
appreciate that. That was it. I got to a point I couldn't drink anymore, and that's it. Haven't had anything since then. There's probably every bourbon that you would ever want to drink sitting right there on that wall. So if you ever make it up here to Wisconsin, I'll pour you one and
Oh,
we can take it easy, but I will not partake. But anybody, and that calls for
oh
anybody
yeah.
listening, you make it to my house, you can have one. What do you think that was just a
Awesome that you have
culmination?
that much control over it, and like that's what I'm telling you. I'm like, dude, I can't have it in my house. I mean, I'm not weak enough where I won't grab it. I just know at some point I will go drink that fucker if it's there. And it might be after I have 2 beers at the restaurant, but at some point I will go drink it. And that's what I've learned time and time again. But I just wanted to say that's great discipline, bro. You can just have it sit there and it doesn't even bother you.
It's just feeds back into that, I just decided that that's it. That's what's best for myself and my family and my wife. And I'm not going to drink. I don't think, I don't want to say never, but I don't think I'm going to drink ever again. Uh, and that's just the way it is. But I'm still going to buy the stuff and keep it in the house. I like collecting bourbons. I like having them. I like looking at them. I think they're fun to try and find, but it's just a little hobby. Um, so, having all, was this just a culmination of all of those different stresses that the
Yeah.
soft life entails and there was no way to head it off? Or did you see the signs of this building and you ignored them like so many
Yeah.
guys do?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing is you see them, dude, but think about how you're living. I mean, again, it's back to back to back to back. I never had time to think. And by the way, you just said it earlier. What is it a culture of? It's a culture of if I come to you with a mission or something, I expect you to not only say yes, but to have a pretty good badass plan to like go do it, like accomplish it, right? Like that's the culture there. If Sergeant Major comes to you more than once and you say no, like just so you know, like he doesn't like you. It's that simple. And it could be that, and I'm just using that rank. It's almost worse sometimes with the officers, to be honest, because they won't tell you anything, but they'll just not like you and then just like fuck you over, basically. Like sometimes, you know what I mean? Like at least a lot of NCOs will be like, hey, they'll tell you, like, I don't like you, and here's why. But my point being, it's not a no culture. So I said yes to everything, bro, for so many years. And you know what that entails of is a lot of deployments, just a lot of ignoring injuries, dude, living on the road, um, created, you know, but can I first say, no one can put something up to alcohol up to my mouth and make me drink it. No one can, certainly no one can take a little thing of, methamphetamine and make me snort it up my nose. Certainly no one can do that. However, um, so I basically want to say is like, at the end of the day, it was my fault that I have those addictions because I did that. But what I want to show is that like this pattern can happen. This pattern of behavior can turn into habit like really fast, dude. And like I said, most of the time it was just me traveling, just having fun. Dude, I never even got in trouble in my military career. Like I've never been like arrested, bro. I've never anything. I never had a DUI, nothing. So I don't mean like I'm a troublemaker. I don't know. That's what's weird about it. I just, but dude, on my off time, in between deployments, what did I do about it? I didn't go see a therapist or like go talk to my buddies or like, I drank about it mostly, man. you know, that was my go-to is I drank. I told you I drank for a celebration. I drank if I was depressed. I drank if I wanted to forget what happened, during the deployment. Um, things like that. So I would like to tell people basically, yeah, you won't see the pattern right up front. That's what's the problem. Most likely, your friends and family and loved ones will. and they're going to start to tell you about it, and you're not going to want to hear it, is what it usually looks like, to be honest. um, if you don't think that you have any sort of issue, right? And this goes with anything in the world. Like if you don't think you have an issue with your deadlift, Nick, and I go over there and I'm trying to show you something about your deadlift, like you're not going to want to hear it. You're like, dude, it took me a long time to get this deadlift the way it is, and you know what? I don't want your advice. You know what I mean? It doesn't apply. I mean, it's kind of how I felt about drinking. I'm like, I've been fucking balancing this life for so long, partying and performing, at work, by the way. Like in SF, you're not allowed to go out drinking and call in sick. So like I was just burning at both ends, dude. Hence like the pills and other stuff that start popping in because you just never stop. Like you almost need something to keep going. Um and I want to explain too, it wasn't like everyone's on pills all the time. I'm not talking about anybody. I don't want anyone to think that. It was in small spurts during certain times of my life. And at the end there, when I call the end, I mean towards the end of my career, basically, in 21 there, they all kind of came to head at once in my particular life. I wasn't even on the teams anymore, dude. I was a staff officer. I was the company operations warrant for C11, basically. And then they were moving me, to the battalion 3 shop. And dude, I honestly, I was at my worst point right there. So I was like, like they were thinking they're gonna help me. I'm like, dude, I'd be better off at the company battalion. It's like worse. You know what I mean? Everyone knows that. Fuck. But you know what, man? It was just like my personal belief is that I opened the door to some evil or mischievous things, dude. I mean, basically, when you put it very simply, like if someone right now is completely sober, for instance, or and hasn't gone down this path, and they say, "How do I avoid that?" Like, don't open the door to those things. And even something as like seemingly innocent as like you go to some seedy character to get some testosterone for your deployment or whatever, right? And those fucking middle-aged men can like relate to that somehow, right? Like before you know it, you're kind of opening the door because that same guy has like pills and other things, doesn't he? Because that's what you're dealing with, like shady. You know what I mean? So like basically, if you want to do your T, dude, go do it right. Go get your blood work done and see what's up, and go see a doctor. But my point being, I believe that's how I open the door, dude. Just like partying and living two separate lives, bro. That's what I was doing, and it got to the point where I didn't. I was neither of the characters. I was living two different characters in two different movies, and I was neither of them truly deep down. I mean, that's what I kind of started to realize. There was like a party guy that was running around at night, and then there was like a guy that was being like professional or at least best I could in that state during the day at work. And then I would like try to hold it together in those in between states, with my wife. And it wasn't always this bad every day, but I'm just kind of generalizing. Much more so towards the end, dude. Yeah, I would go on these like 4 or 5 day drinking benders, dude. Sometimes crazy. Like I would be so hungover and like so fucked up in the morning that I would like basically have to like I would grab like a thing like this, dude. I mean, this is just water, but I would grab a thing like this and just chug it, like half the fucking bottle, and then like go shower, brush my teeth, come back, chug the other half, and then like maybe get some food down, and then like, all right, let's go. That's why. Like when I went in there and told the doc how much I was drinking, he didn't believe me.
Yeah.
He goes, "Well, if you were drinking that much, you'd be dead." And I'm like, "Well, doc, you'd be amazed what the human body can do if you train it properly. Because at my size and with my willpower, I trained right through all those hangovers and everything. I just kept drinking." Do you know what I mean? And so, yeah, I had a tolerance towards the end there, dude. But I was also, that's another key point I want to make here, dude. It's like, since getting treatment for my PTSD, you see, I had to go to rehab to go get treatment for my PTSD. And this is going to hurt a lot of people because a lot of people don't want to get treatment for their PTSD. And they definitely don't want to get treatment for their addiction. That's what happens a lot of times. And if they do want to get treatment for their PTSD, they don't want to get the treatment. They don't want to stop using or drinking first, basically. But if you don't go into treatment sober, like it's really hard to do like intense, like PTSD trauma therapy if you're not of sober mind. And I mean, not just like 1 day sober, like you probably need to be sober for a few weeks or months, before you. So I basically had to do the rehab to do the other one because they said if he's got an alcohol problem, we're not even going to see him until he's sober, basically. And so I did both. I ended up going to an inpatient facility twice. So yeah, here I was, CW3, stack of fucking little ribbons and all this stuff. and special forces officer, da 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 da, da, and I'm in there with grippy socks, you know. I wasn't in a hospital gown. We were allowed to have clothes, but dude, still, I mean, it was very hard for me to deal with the fact that I was in, for lack of a better term, a loony bin, dude, a mental health facility. Now, it was one that was specifically, kind of for guys like us, the veterans and stuff like that. Um, to be honest, what they do with a lot in there, what I found most people is there's a lot of rape trauma in there. There's a lot of rape in the military. I didn't realize. I mean, I honestly didn't realize how much there is. The military is a big place, so there was a lot of folks in there that have been raped, men and women, by the way. So it's interesting. I got to learn a whole new perspective on that. It wasn't something I found common in my community. At least I didn't hear about it ever. But there is a pretty bad rape and sexual assault culture in certain parts of the big military.
What would you tell the guy that doesn't think he has a problem right now on the team, if he can hear this, that it's like, I'm fine? What do you want to tell that guy?
Dude, it's so hard, man, because I don't even want to be like a lecturer type of guy, man. I'm figuring out myself, but I guess what I would tell him is like, I'd like to, well, basically context of this conversation. Does the guy want to drink less? Is that why we're talking? Because if he wants to drink less, like that is your sign that you have a problem. Like if literally, like no one that has that is healthy with their alcohol intake or whatever with their pills wonders whether or not their intake is healthy. You know what I mean? Like that just
Hmm.
doesn't really happen. It's kind of like me. I regulate my, I know you work out too. Like I regulate my creatine intake myself. I have a few supplements I take and I regulate it every day, exactly the same amount. I know what's in there. You know what I mean? I don't stray too far from it. I don't worry if I'm taking too much because I know, But those of us that have sort of developed quite a tolerance, and by the way, we've gotten away with it for a while. I mean, dude, I knew I could, pretty much drink up until about 8 hours before the range, and I could sober up. So I get fucked up until 8 hours before the range, and they go in there like, when they said in the safety brief, like, don't drink your do any, medications within 8 hours of the range, like, they don't mean like get fucked up until the very last second of that 8 hour mark. But yeah, that's what I was doing. Sometimes, and just going to PT, fucking sweating it out. I mean, how many years? I mean, years I did that. Years I did that, dude. But I'm bouncing around. Yeah, man. If you're having to sweat it out every morning, dude, and it basically wasn't a problem for me, dude, until it was. And what I mean by that is I started missing shit. I started doing uncharacteristic shit. I started sleeping through alarms. I started missing, or just being late and always running late. And when you're constantly late and fucking hungover, you're like sweaty and you just don't look good. It's like I just think people noticed. You know what I mean? I just think people noticed I didn't look healthy, and I didn't. I didn't see it, and I was just kind of like, "Fuck you," what I mean? How busy I am. Like, we'll come up with any excuse to keep doing it, dude. But basically, if you think you got a problem, you probably do. If you can't, if the problem is you're doing drugs, I mean, and they're hard drugs, like you have to stop somehow. So you have a problem, you need to get real help. And if you go to your fucking team sergeant or whatever right now, or whoever you trust, because it ain't always the team sergeant, sorry, um, you can get help and not receive any basically punishment or backlash whatsoever. Bro, I mean,
Yeah.
there is help. It's not even gonna be that big a deal, dude. After I went to the rehab, honestly, several other guys were like, dude, I didn't realize that was even a thing. And then they went, you know what I mean? Not to say they did it only because I went, but me doing it made them realize that it was possible and that, fuck it, ain't that big a deal. Were they going to judge you for a couple of weeks while you're in there? Like, don't even worry about it, dude. When you go in there, no one even fucking thinking about you. Honestly, all your friends are like, cool, go get sober up and come back so we can, start working out again, start lifting, start training, start whatever we're going to do. So people won't judge you, and it doesn't take very long. And yes, you have to do a program, where you probably have to do some follow up classes and maybe do a few drug tests. But honestly, if you want to get off of drugs, that's probably the way. I mean, it's the only way to go, dude. You have to do it, unless you can just stop right now. And a lot of people can't, man. I mean, that's the truth. The alcohol one is a harder one because it's everywhere in culture. It's even pretty acceptable. Like I live in Austin, it's pretty acceptable to like have a lunch beer. It's not a big deal here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, there's kind of a drinking culture everywhere. So it's kind of hard there, man. Like if you, can't, I mean, most people say they just can't drink one drop whatsoever. Dude, and I've went through periods, like you, not as long as you. I mean, I've done 6 months at a time. during that time, I had to stay sober for a year, actually. So yeah, I mean, I might have drank a couple times, dude. Honestly, I'm bad. I probably drank a few times, but um, bottom line is basically there's help. You can get it, dude. It's not that big a deal. You can come back stronger. If you're a drinker and you just can't put it down right now, dude, there's even a chance that you could go to rehab or something and get clean, and or maybe just use AA and just don't buy alcohol and just don't go anywhere where they serve alcohol for a little while, dude. But it's even possible you can learn to drink again, like honestly. And I know they don't want you to say that, but I see it all the time. I mean, I do too. I mean, not saying I'm perfectly balanced in every way or whatever like that, but I still go out and enjoy the occasional drink, and it hasn't turned into me, drinking the way I was before. It could if I leave that door open, right? So I'm not the type to give like a preachy advice. I'm just more like, dude, here's what I experienced, and here's when you should know. I mean, if you think you got a problem with something, you probably do. It's pretty simple. What to do about it is the hardest problem because no one wants to leave the team or no one wants to stop their job or whatever it is. Their little pattern of life they got going, they don't want to interrupt that. And the truth is whatever pattern you've got going on that is involving that drug or alcohol or whatever, um, that is the thing that's killing you. And it's just one thing you don't want to change, basically, right? So it's like you have to think about it. It's like, man, if I'm doing this series of things and this pattern and these results, which I don't like, are happening all the time, like maybe I should try a different pattern, change the pattern. And for some reason, as simple as that is, I could not do that for a long time. I was really stuck in my patterns. You know what I mean? Wake up, drink a gallon of coffee and gallon of fucking booze sometimes, you
Yeah.
know. But even if it's just the energy drinks and the coffee, dude. I mean, I don't know if it was like that for you, but dude, we were just slamming these things all day. Dude, I was just doing tobacco pouches and fucking energy drinks and shit all day. I mean, just to sit through these meetings and shit that were so important to me, dude. Honestly, so I was like, yeah. I mean, even that's not good on your health, right?
No, it all adds up. None of it's good. All of the shit that we
Right.
did in the military.
The army was healthy for,
No,
except for
yeah,
except for exercise.
yeah, that's the first thing they do in the day, and then everything after PT is unhealthy for you after that point. So we go from this point, this low point. Where does music come in? Is this what's lifting you out of it?
Yeah. Um, I had started. I had picked up on a good. So backing up to 2007 in Iraq, I got wounded on that first Iraq trip. I know I'm bouncing around, but it's just because of the flow of the conversations better than chronology wise. But 2007, I got blown up. It wasn't that bad, but I tweaked my knee really fucking bad. I took some small shrapnel, whatever. It wasn't a big deal. I did get the Purple Heart, but it wasn't that big of a deal. I did take a small concussion. But what I did, the worst thing that was bothering me, dude, is I twisted the hell out of my knee and I tore my meniscus like a really bad bucket handle tear. If you ever had one, and if I had gotten it early, like it almost felt like I could have just went somewhere and gotten it like scoped and came back and finished the deployment. But because we couldn't do that, you had to be like medevac basically to get treated. And they couldn't handle that procedure like at the like cash or whatever, like the military hospital we had for that. Um, basically, my knee just kept getting worse and worse. I was just running around doing missions on it, like, for the whole summer. And back then, man, we were doing 2, 3 missions a night. It was a fun time to be running around doing SF guy stuff. And, yeah, I fucked up my knee really bad. So by the time I got back, it was so bad, dude. They had to like go in there and cut it all out. I was like, I had the procedure done. They basically removed my meniscus. I mean, normally they kind of like shave out the tear, but it was so messed up. He kind of just removed like 90% of the tissue. I was kind of laid up on the couch for a few weeks, and I bought a guitar, and I started learning the chords. And I learned a few songs and stuff like that. Well, this would develop over time, and I would find myself, buying cheap guitars or taking cheap little backpack guitars, or if I'm on a deployment, I could actually find a cheap ass guitar somewhere for that deployment. Like I would buy it and just keep practicing. And then, yeah, right about that time, dude, that guitar playing played a pivotal role in my mental health, dude. They always say like when you're really struggling, you got to find that one thing. And normally my one thing's working out, but when I was not doing that for various reasons, most of which was the way I was treating my body at night. um, when I wasn't doing that, man, the music was critical. I started writing these songs, and now I've written, I've written over 100, but I mean, and I'm going to continue to write them. But I've got like a couple dozen really good developed ones, and three of my favorite of which I just recently released on the album called Veritas, which you can find right now on all of your favorite platforms, including Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and what's the other one? YouTube
YouTube.
Music, Amazon
Yeah.
Music. It's on all of it. You can buy it or listen to it if you have a subscription to the thing. So it's pretty much free on most platforms, to be honest. So please check it out, and you'll get to hear some more of these stories in the songs. Some of the songs will probably make more sense now that the story's out there because some of the lyrics in there, man. It's funny when you write these because I wrote them a couple years ago, and it's funny like you're just in a different place in life, and it's like it's kind of fun that it kind of takes me back there, man. There's one part of the song that goes, "They say the war is over, must be nice for them. What about the soldiers? They got a GI Bill, a handful of pills, and they fight that war within." And so that'll probably make a lot more sense, that part of the song, now that people have listened to this, hopefully. But that's how I felt at that time, dude. I felt kind of low, vulnerable, weak. Um, Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel that way anymore. But it's interesting to find that strength in the transition on the civilian side after my military career is a lot different process than it was to build the calluses basically to do the job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You almost have to like uncallus. It's like we were saying before, like your skill. One of your best skills, if you're an SF guy, is like you've been verified on this, is your willingness to suffer, basically, to put a team or a mission or something very difficult that sucks and you don't want to do it before your own, self and your own health and your own wellness. So we get so good at doing that in that world. You know how it is. You're not even allowed to brag about accomplishments. I still have a hard time doing that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I have a hard time explaining to people my things because I'm used to being around SF guys. You don't brag about your bronze star or whatever. Not to say you brag, but I mean, you don't even talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, and you definitely don't brag about your PT score or your whatever. Like, it's just assumed that you're going to be the best PT score kind of thing. And that's a harsh life and expectation to live up to is what I would say. And so that skill set and skill that helps you in that life is actually the very same thing that can hurt you so much if you're going through untreated PTS, for instance, or addiction, which, by the way, they're not two separate things, man. They almost always go together, is what we find, especially in us. I've almost never seen an SF guy that was suffering from really bad, PTSD that didn't also have an alcohol dependence or a pill dependence. Something. It's always something. It's because you feel like shit. You need something just to function. At least that's how you feel.
Yeah. And it's easy to go get it at the store, right? It's easy to
Yeah.
do that and just make the pain away, push it off until tomorrow. But this is so you coming on the show. It's interesting, right? That's why the most important part about all the social media stuff is content, right? You got your album out and you post something, and that's to get yourself out there. You don't know who's watching. You don't know who's watching because I found your post just because you said in your I click on it and you said Veritas on social media, right? I was like, oh, that sounds a little familiar. So I click on it. It says, oh, former Green Beret. And you don't know me, and there's some stuff we're going to talk about after this where I'm going to try and help you out even more with your music stuff after this. But it's just interesting. Like I love this brotherhood, right? And the guys' stories. But what's cool about this is you've got a crazy story, and now you're going to share this with people, and they're going to learn more about you, about the things that make you you. And hopefully somebody watching will see something and they'll be like, you know what, I need to make that change. Or if I'm seeing these things, I can learn something from Bob. And that's really all it is, right? Hopefully we will get off track. Everybody gets off track in their life. Something pulls them off to one side, and you got to pull yourself back on the tracks and get your life back together. And do you feel like you're getting to that point, or is it just still a
Yeah.
struggle all the time?
No, I don't know, man. I'm doing great. So I mean, life's a struggle. I mean, I want to say that like it's a struggle every day for sure. But you know, I think you gotta get momentum, dude. It's just like it reminds me of in the Q course. Remember they taught like have that confidence target, like with your guerrilla force.
Yeah.
Like don't as you start to build teamwork and you start to get some momentum, don't give them the hardest task that they can accomplish always. There's a time for that, but there's also a really good time to do a confidence target. It's why football teams will generally have a couple like weaker teams in their schedule early on so they can like, get some confidence going. And so what that looks like, at least in my life, and what I think you would notice too, is creating some of those healthy patterns, dude. Like whenever I'm exercising good and getting outside and getting some sun and eating well and stuff like that, it's all building momentum for me. Um, there's even a spiritual component. I don't, go across like preaching or anything like that. So I don't want to go deep down that route, but that was another one I ignored for a long time. Spiritual health is a thing, and I don't know. Seems to look different for everybody. I have friends that are Buddhists and friends that just, do all kinds of different things. I mean, I have a friend that basically does a religious version of like a yoga and a breathing thing. But anyways, it's really helped this person, so I don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's fantastic. But I just know that for whatever reason, I was looking at like, health is just like there's mental health and then there's like physical health. Well, like it's all connected, man. I mean, and so is spiritual health. It's like your relationships, like they all matter a little bit. And what I noticed in my life is that when one of those pillars kind of came down, they all started to collapse. You know what I mean? Um, when the addiction and the deceit started to take over, um, so too did I start to try to manipulate, people around me and stuff like that, and my ex-wife and different things. Like you start to do things that are out of character, basically, when you're spiritually unhealthy. That's the way I'll word it.
Mm.
Um, and that can look a lot like someone that's addicted and going through it and basically doesn't see it and doesn't want to hear it, man. Like that was it. I wanted help, but I didn't want that much help. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? For me, it was literally like a matter of just taking some time off, dude. I mean, honestly, that's what I needed. And I know that sucks for advice because there's so many people that are like, I just can't do that. Like, all right, I don't, that's tough. I don't know what that
You,
looks like, but I'll say if you're addicted and you're like fucked up, dude, you almost have to, man. You're gonna have to take some time off. You know?
the other option is you fucking die.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So
And like I said, it didn't me getting treatment um didn't like hurt my career or anything. But what it did was slow things down enough for me to reflect and kind of realize that I didn't want to be in the army anymore. You know what I mean? Like
mm,
kind of to realize like I could accept that it's over. I wasn't quitting by getting out at 20 years. It's not quitting when the wars you joined the fighting are over and it's been 20 years and I mean that's what we all in the army. When you do 20 years in the army, for about the last like 12 years, every day you wake up and go, at least I'll get that pension. And, one day, like, especially those last five, you're like, how much is that pension again? You start looking at it and Googling what the numbers are because it matters, dude. And it's hard. It gets harder as you go along, too. You know, the longer you're in something. Um, but basically, I just needed some time off, dude. It was like I was on the burners for a long time. Um, what I believe thoroughly is that it's for us, for most of us, it's a nervous system thing. um, for the special operator guys. You know what I mean? Navy SEALs, Green Beret, shit like that. For most of us, it's a nervous system thing, and you have to slow that nervous system down, basically. And that's not an easy answer to that. Some people have to go as far as to go do like ibogaine treatments and different things. I mean, I went and did a ketamine treatment thing, and it was kind of, I mean, I did it to check it out. I mean, I thought it was a pretty cool little trip. I don't know if everyone needs to do it or not, but it wasn't as effective to me as EMDR therapy was. I'll tell people that if they're looking into it. EMDR therapy was very effective for me, and that's basically there's different versions of it, but the version I did was basically there's a paddle in each hand, and it's like vibrating. It like vibrates, and for whatever reason, that stimulates both sides of the brain. I'm really shortening this because I don't want to pretend to be like a doctor up here. I don't have the and the way that stimulates the brain, it opens it up for therapy better for to make it really short and easy. Like sometimes people just aren't good with therapists, and then they'll do EMDR and they'll open right up, and all of a sudden they're seeing these things from their childhood that were bothering them. But for a lot of our guys, assuming you don't have a lot of like specific trauma, and like I don't in your personal life, like if you're raped as a kid or something like that, like and you've never dealt with it, like you're gonna have to. It's gonna be hard too, but you're gonna have to do treatment for that. Basically, like I think that the only way to deal with that is like through therapy. I believe. I don't know. I'm not an expert, but if it's just because like you've overran your fucking nervous system, you've revved so hard for so long that you're basically in permanent fight or flight. You know what I mean? And that's what a lot of us have. I've heard some people call it operator syndrome. That's not an official term until some, doctor gets peer reviewed, for that. But whatever we're going to call it, there's there's definitely effects on the nervous system to staying revved at higher RPMs for long periods of time, staying very aware, staying acutely, basically right on the edge of, fight or flight. I mean, that's what we're kind of doing. We don't realize it, but your nervous system's doing it either way. Even if you can handle it very well, you know what I mean? You're going on missions, like, no, don't bother me. This is just what I do, and that's, kind of how it is when you develop a habit of doing these things. Um, Even if that, it doesn't mean that it won't have effects, later in life. Like I said, man, it can even come physical effects from not only nervous system, but even from mental disorders or from past traumas. For me, dude, digestive problems. I've got a fucked up stomach, man, and a lot of guys that I know do as well. Basically, it's better when I eat really clean and exercise great, but we don't all do that, right? So it's like, yeah, if I don't eat really good, if I go out and drink, beers and like eat cheeseburgers and shit, I'm gonna be in trouble, man. I know that's like everybody, but I mean, like I have severe problems with it now. So where they can last days. So that's weird, and they can't find anything medically. But it just, I believe that it was just, you know, probably years of exposure to things, and also years of just revving that nervous system really high that caused my digestive system to go that way. And probably exposure to some of the toxins, right, like the burn pits and shit like that.
That's official now. That's no longer allegedly. That's a real thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
I'm ready for the thing. Yeah.
good. So you sound like you got it on track. So what's next? What's the one
Oh yeah.
year,
So
2 year, 5 year plan?
um, like to start a business. Not there yet, but I got out. First step was, unfortunately, when I first got out, I was, going through a divorce. So that was really hard on me. And, the transition and the divorce at the same time was really hard on me, dude. So my biggest first step was to get out here to Austin, start my retirement, like officially, and then start getting my music off the ground, which I did with the album. And I plan to build out the music much more. Gonna be posting some, I don't want to say live tour dates yet because that sounds like I gotta get a bigger following for that. But I'm gonna be basically hitting the road and doing some gigs, so I'm gonna start posting those. And I would like to build up where, yeah, I get a couple albums out there, get a small following, and do some live gigs, man. That's absolutely what I'm aiming for. Don't have to be rich and famous. Probably won't be. Get that. Not shooting for that. Not looking for that. But a small following of friends that actually enjoy my music, man. And, have a fun, good, show. Like, dude, that sounds fantastic to me. That would be a fun way to spend my retirement. I also have my GI Bill still. So I got my degree in the military on my TA. So I got my GI Bill now, and I'm going to be going back to school very shortly. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do that in. Like what, but I'm thinking about business probably. Because like I said, I'd like to start getting involved in some business as well. But the music mainly, brother, is what we're looking at short term. And I'm awful excited, man. I want people to check that out. At some point in the pod, dude, I'd like to talk about the songs a little bit because I don't know
Yeah,
if
let's
now's the
go.
right time. So I released 3 songs on here, and interestingly enough, they almost all 3 seem like they're of different genres and styles, at least to me and most of the people I hear listen to them. I kind of like that. I've always been a big music lover, so like, dude, like I've always loved different genres and different everything. So this one's a really interesting blend of like different styles. As where one song, "Fighting Man," sounds a little more like rock, kind of like a country rock kind of mashup, or almost like traditional Southern rock. Um, "War Brewing" is a little like slower. It almost sounds like something you would see on a or hear on a like a soundtrack or something like that, or a video game. It's kind of cool. And then the last song, "What Would Johnny Cash Do," is kind of like singer songwriter Americana, ode to Johnny Cash and ode to the military folks. Fighting Man, is a song basically about, yes, like it's man, but it doesn't necessarily mean male or female. About the fighting men and women that go over there, experience, some traumas, and then come back and how they deal with that. Um, I'm sorry, too. The sun just fucking hit like right here, and it's like beating right on me. Let me.
Yeah, you good. If you want to close the blind real quick.
Well, it doesn't bother me. I'm a sweaty dude, bro. But everyone's gonna be like, "Dude, why are you so sweaty?" That's just how I am,
Oh,
bro.
that's what that is. I was like, oh, your shirt's kind of patchy. Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, I'm actually sweating because it's warm in here. But I was at the gym right before, and I didn't think I would start sweating again. I did immediately as soon as that sun came through. But Fighting Man is basically about those experiences over there, and then the experiences of coming home and dealing with them a little bit. Um, that particular song is very like near and dear to me. That's kind of like my anthem. It's got a fun, it's got a really fun hook to it, a fun chorus that's kind of like if you listen to it a few times, you almost want to sing along to it. And that's kind of my hope. Um, Next one, War Bruin, same thing. Honestly, it kind of chronicles my specific um, journey as I joined the army, and then going through some of the experiences and then coming home. But it wasn't meant to be like about me specifically. Hopefully, it is more about kind of all of us who joined during that like GWAT time frame, but joined specifically to go to war. Basically, there was a lot of folks joining knowing that we were going to go to Iraq or Afghanistan, basically. Um, and then the effects of doing so, you know. Um, that one's really fun. The last one, what would Johnny Cash do? I wrote that last summer. To be honest, I was reminded of an experience where there was a MARSOC operator. Basically, this team had been out like all night and had a pretty rough day. They lost a couple of guys, basically, U.S. And for a small MARSOC team of wherever they were, 18 or something, to lose like three of their friends, I mean that's a huge blow. Not just losing three of your friends, but I mean losing that percentage of your force basically was made it enough where the mission was pretty much over. But it's because we tried to medevac them. One of the birds was shot down. By the way, I'm at the SOTF, so I'm just monitoring all of this basically at the three. Um, Medevac bird was practically shot down. The co-pilot was shot through the leg. The bird got all shot up. I think even the pilot was shot. They couldn't land, so they took off. They tried to land another one and almost got shot down. So it's basically decided like, hey man, you guys have to walk out of there. And they're basically this MARSOC team's pinned down with three of their dead friends in body bags. Pinned down, trying to fight their way out of this fucking valley, and down there in Helmand. It is in Helmand too. It's really easy. It's like, oh, just use air support. It's like, it's really easy to say that, man. But those guys hide in so many nooks and crannies and little spaces. They have clever little fighting positions and tunnels. And a lot of times you're getting shot at and you have no idea where it's coming from. And they were basically like kind of pinned down. And I mean, fighting their ass off, dude. I mean, this is a real fucking fight. And we can't land a medevac bird. And so these guys have to basically walk like, I think it's like 5 clicks, dude. 5 kilometers fighting and carrying their dead friends, basically. Um, Dude, yeah, I just remember that dude came off the mission, obviously at SOTF, and like the three of the commander, everybody wanted to debrief him, and the guys wanted to kind of deal with what had just happened on the mission. And at one point he was just kind of fucking gave him the bird and walked out. And I was like, dude, what a bad motherfucker. No one even got mad at him because it was such a night. There was so much emotion, so much stuff going on,
Yeah.
He goes like basically, I'll do the fucking reports tomorrow. Gave him the bird and walked off with his boys. Um, and so I wrote a song about it, man. It kind of I was inspired by that, but I wrote the song really about all of the military men and women fighting, but especially in special ops. I have a special place in my heart for all of us that served in SOF, especially in SF. But hey, man, MARSOC and SEALs too in this particular case, the idea of fighting all day and walking all night with, your dead friends, and making it back, I was like, what did y'all do? It's like, well, we fucking humped it out. We had to. So I
Yeah.
put that on. Fought all day, walked all night because he had to. What would Johnny Cash do? So it's kind of an ode to Johnny Cash and also to the military folks and soft folks in that specific MARSOC team in this instance, since now I've told you the story.
It's all right, man. It's There's, uh, nobody that served is better than anyone else. It's just different, right? If you're in a soft unit, it's different. Like you're in a regular army unit, that has its place in the military, but a soft unit's different. And if you're in your Green Beret, MARSOC, your SEAL, you kind of understand that it's got its own special way of sucking, right?
Yeah, for
And
real.
and being able to express that in a song, a lot of guys song things like that I get into, and but some guys can't express what it was like or can't even talk about it, right? And so I
Yeah.
commend you for coming on here and talking about the things that it's really hard to fucking talk about. It's hard to get up in front of people that you don't know. So that's why I like this. You can get up with me. I understand, and I'm not going to judge anybody that comes on here. They could tell me fucking anything. I'll be like, yeah, shit, fuck, that life will do that for to you.
Yeah.
And but that's great, man. You've got, and is it? You said you've written like 100 songs. I mean, you always got your notepad next to the bed and you're just jotting the shit down all the time.
Yeah, kind of, man. I have some notepads like throughout the house.
Yeah.
And you know what I usually do is honestly, when the ideas come, like you never get to choose when they come. Like I love to, like I'm gonna write a song today. I go sit down. I can't think of anything, but I'll be like driving in my car or I'll be doing something else, and something just pops in my head. I'm like that's too fucking good, dude. There's no way. So oftentimes I'll do like a voice memo or something, and just the idea. And then later when I can actually get down to writing it, I like to write on yellow legal pad. I mean, any paper really, but I bought these yellow legal pads because that's what I've always written on. Is that what you got there? Yeah, exactly. Dude, I like to write notes and songs on yellow legal pads. So they're never official until they've been written on there. And then once they're on there, I play them and scratch stuff off and do all this. And so I have these songs where you see these yellow legal pads where I don't know if yours is that way, notes and just shit everywhere. Little scratch that out, circle this, arrow over here. um, and you just put it through the ringer. And in the case of like Fighting Man and War Bruin, two of those songs on that album. I mean, I've been playing and tinkering with those and developing them for several years. So I'm very comfortable. They're pretty much where they want to be, I think, at least in the format and stuff like that. The Johnny Cash film was interesting because I had just written that last summer, and it was like the first real, like, I thought, like, good song that I had written since I retired last year. And so in that particular case, we got to go in the studio and just play with it a little bit. Like of course, I had the whole structure of the song, but I didn't really know what like the drums and the other stuff was going to sound like on that. I mean, I just only had the guitar piece. So, I write these things on acoustic guitar,
Mm-hmm.
if that's not obvious. So I don't always know what they're going to sound like later, like when we get a band going or something like that. Um, but in this case, I thought those sounded very well, dude. So yeah, I want to bring those songs out there. I want to get it out into the universe, man. That's
Well, I'm
why I
going to
did that.
have links to all your socials and where to find them in the show description, obviously. Um, I like that, because this is your episode, right? You're going to show this to people, and that's another like responsibility that I see on my part. I want to make a nice interview that you can show to people, because some people that I've had come on, this is their only time coming out and talking to people, and I'm like, well, that's my responsibility to have a good conversation where people can learn something about you that they
Yeah.
didn't know, and because like I said earlier, it's tough talking about some of these things, and you gain a new understanding if you care enough for your friends and what they've been through. So,
Yeah.
yeah, this is all
I'll tell
about
you,
you,
dude,
man.
I didn't have any format or plan coming into this whatsoever. I didn't even write any notes because I didn't really know. I just wanted to kind of talk. I don't know if that was a mistake or not, but I definitely felt comfortable sharing a lot of things that I haven't really told anybody. And honestly, they probably only damaged my reputation in some ways. So there's nothing that I would get out of it, but I had to share at least a little message of hope, dude. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not from like this doesn't always have to be so grandiose. That's the thing, dude. It's like, well, now I'm a rich, famous fucking badass. Look at me. Like, no. You know what, dude? Getting through and just keeping your head down and just keep fucking rucking and going on. Like I said, that'll get you really far in like in selection and in Q course, right? Just keep going, basically. Don't fucking quit. That'll get you pretty far in life, dude. And I'm not afraid to share, you know, not only mistakes I've made, but just all of these obstacles I've come across. And in hopes that it helps somebody, not like to say like, look at me, this is the example of how you behave. No, the opposite. I want you to know that dude, like you can fuck up and we all do it. That's okay. I still do sometimes, man, but I'm doing a lot better than I was a couple years ago for a good reason. I started creating better habits. And I just want to share that with everybody.
When you say it's like probably damaged my reputation a little bit, no, fuck that. You know what? Because I know as well as you know, almost every SF guy is this close to losing his tab or losing his whole career at any given time on any deployment anywhere in the world. So if anybody
Yeah.
thinks any different than you, fuck them. That's what I say. And they don't,
Good.
yeah. There's some hypocrite living on a different planet that was in a different unit than I was in because there was some real life stress and some people did some horrible things for their country. And if we don't show a little compassion when they get back, then you can go fuck yourself. That's what I say to that.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I got 5 questions I ask everybody if you want to take a shot at them.
Let's do it.
All right. What is your response to thank you for your service?
Dude, I never know. That's why it's a good question. I know.
Because you're new, you're fresh out. You don't have one queued up
No.
yet.
And by the way, I do it now because it used to annoy me, but I realize I don't care if it annoys service members, dude. I'm going to do it. When I see one at the airport or something, I try to, I say it or I say something nice. I know that. Um, but thank you for your service. You know what? People are just being kind, dude. You know, like, and if for people out there that don't understand, like, yeah, there's a lot of us, especially active duty guys that have been doing a long time. We're kind of callous about our, again, in this special forces life, especially, you don't take credit for anything. So there's no thank you. There's no, and I just mean that we can be a little callous. Like basically, if someone's thanking you for your service, they're just trying to do something nice. They're saying something nice. I've almost never heard it said in a bad way that is actually offensive. So just be kind back, dude. I mean, I usually say thank you back.
I just go with, I heard it right away when I got out. I say, it was an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, that's something like that. Yeah, it's like that. Just keep it simple. Thank you. That's exactly what I said. I go, you know what? I've told a few people that if like it wasn't a short conversation, if we were actually talking, I'm like, dude, I had a blast. Honestly, I joined an all volunteer army during a time of war. Like, no one made me do it. In fact, all of this training and other stuff I had to do was, I went out of my way to do it. Let's just put it that way. You go very far out of your way to go into special forces. You don't accidentally end up in there. So it's all my fault if it was good or bad. And
Yeah.
what I mean is I had a lot of fun and I had a great career, dude. And, I just have zero regrets, dude. I would tell anybody I would do it all again, dude. Honestly, every bit of it again. You know, maybe not the very last part, but at the same time, you can't choose one without the other, dude. I kept my head down and rucked for like 18, 19 years. And I finally hit a point where I'm like, all right, I can't do it anymore. I need help, you know, and that is okay. We all going to come to a point in our lives where that's the case.
What is the one characteristic that sets operators apart from conventional forces?
Mm. These are good. Don't mind if I think for a second, right?
You're fine, man.
Um, it's just a different level, right? It's just a different level. It's the same stuff at a different level. You know what I mean? Um, so it wouldn't be to say, for instance, that regular army guys aren't in good a shape. They're not as good as shooters. They're not as dedicated to the mission. They're not as tough. They're not as none of that seems to make sense to me. So what is it? It's a combination of all of that, I believe. I think it's kind of the whole man concept, you know. Um, Again, like I said earlier, if it was only for good athletes, like then we would have nothing but athletes in there. But that's not the case. In fact, some of the best athletes fail it all the time. Well, if it was only for the smartest people, then we would have only these academics in there, right? Like it's designed the way it is for a very specific reason, and that's to find somebody that, like I said before, is willing to tolerate a threshold of things that is well beyond what most people are willing to tolerate. You know, and in this case, Army people are willing to do that, but people that go into Army Special Forces and make it through it and then make a career out of it and this and that, they're willing to go a lot further, basically, with that, with their discipline and with their commitment and with the amount of shit they're willing to deal with. I mean, when we're talking about deploying all the time and doing all this stuff, I mean, what you're really saying is you're prioritizing that life over everybody in your life, including your wife and kids. And I never had kids, but I just mean to, like, most of us do, and it's a big decision you're making. It's almost one that I see weighs on people's conscience over time. Guys that do careers like, dude, I wasn't even there for my daughters, man. Like it seems sometimes it's a problem later. You know what I mean? So, um, point being, they're risking a lot, and they're willing to risk a whole lot, and they're willing to go a whole lot further for it than most other people are. you know?
I do know. I know exactly what you mean. What is, and for those listening at home, based on a suggestion from a friend of mine, we are going to tweak the third question slightly. What is the one moment of your career that you could wish you could go back and relive or redo?
I would, dude. Man, there's so many things I would relive, man. I know it's one, but um, I do that. I guess the pride I felt as a young man. I told you how young I was when I graduated the Q course. I think I just turned 21, and when I got that hat and tab, dude, I was like, for the first time in my life, I felt like I had really, I had done something that I could be very proud of. I was very accomplished. Even all the adults in my life were very admirable. Showed admiration for me and stuff like that. And as a young man, that affected me a lot. So it was a very proud moment. I mean, it's always a proud moment for anybody getting that Green Beret and all that stuff. It is for everybody. But in a weird way, for me to do it young and against the odds, when everyone's basically telling you as a young X-ray that you're not going to make special forces. This is just here to recruit more infantry. You're never going to make it. You're too young. You're too this. You're too da 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 da. And to make it through and get that was definitely one of the proudest days of my life, dude. My dad was there and he was proud, man. I was too. I would relive the '07 experience. That's where I was working with the SIF on the Cree mission, working for Delta Force, basically, working in a task force underneath them. We had, like, British SAS and Army Rangers, and then those guys, like the Delta Force guys in the task force, and then us, the Team SIF. And dude, like I said, I got to be like Delta Force Light for a whole summer, man. Like, just some extra help to a bunch of elite operators with really good intelligence and a bunch of fancy toys and a lot of money, and a whole team of really, this big joint, interagency task force, basically, that can, like, develop so much more intel than we could even hit the targets, basically. You know what I'm saying? That's why they want to know. We were doing 3 or 4 hits a night, man, running around in the summer in Baghdad, and I was young and very well prepared, and it was a fun time to be over there. I don't mean that like just violently, man. In fact, dude, we got really good at getting in the middle of the night and grabbing a guy and getting out, honestly, without a shot fired. That was the goal, was to get in and out without a shot fired. We were getting so good that we sent small teams in just under nods, make no noise, blow up no doors, sneak in through the roof, go down, put a guy in flex cuffs, and take him out in the middle of the night before anyone even knows. I mean, didn't even wake up his family in some cases, like, in other cases it was different, but I just mean that the goal was to avoid the ambush on the way out. So that was fun, getting really good at that, man. Almost like going and taking some guy that's putting IEDs in the street, off the streets in the middle of the night, without even shooting around. It's kind of cool. Like, who can do that? Um, but the thing I would change, well, obviously, man, I've been very vulnerable on this podcast. I guess I wish I could go back and not change any one thing, but just kind of change some of my patterns that I set towards the end of my career. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at the same time, dude, like, I don't even blame myself, because I honestly think that they were mostly a symptom of, the untreated PTSD and the other stuff. But at the same time, they became addictions and things on their own. Wounds can fester, basically. But so I know I answered that in a couple of different parts, but I almost wanted it. It's a 20-year career. I was very proud to become a Green Beret. I was proud to do it. Had a blast in '07 and during that general time frame when I was on the SIP. And, I mean, it's a great time in Afghanistan, other places too, don't get me wrong, but that's what's standing out to me. And then do it differently. Yeah, man, I don't know. I wish I could have done it without partying, like basically without drinking so much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, every team I ended up on was always like a work hard, play hard team. Like even in like the Swift Criff, like I felt like we kind of had a drinking culture. Like we had these like old grog bowl, like like frat boy shit. Like we'd have these ceremonies where you like drink out of grog bowl. Anyways, not that that's making you an alcoholic or anything, but at the same time, the fact that every event you get together away from work involves a heavy amount of alcohol is like usually a sign. So over time, that became, I guess, a consideration. But yeah, basically, I know I'm kind of shortening it because yeah, like
Oh,
yeah,
you're
man,
good, man.
change. I don't know if I'd change anything to be honest.
Then you'd come with a different outcome. But
Yeah,
what's the best piece of advice that you received during your career?
mm, it's a good one. I got so many, dude. So many good pieces. Obviously, over the years, I had so many different good mentors and stuff. But I always like simple stuff, basically. Um, I'm gonna go with the don't show up late, light, or out of uniform, man. I know it's a really basic NCO one, but I think that applies to life because the way I look at it, it's like don't be late, meaning show up with enough time to be prepared. It doesn't mean just on time. You know what I mean? Um, Light meaning showing up with the tools you need to get your actual job done. You know what I mean? We're talking about light being a rucksack, but whatever your job or position or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, I mean, having the right stuff with you on time to get it done is critically essential. And then late lighter, what out of uniform? Yeah, that's one I still struggle with, dude. Honestly, I've never been a good uniform guy, man. I'm pretty much a t-shirt and jeans or like something simple, a little salsa shirt. You're going to the gym or whatever. But basically, I would say just more so like in the environment, fitting into the environment you're trying to fit into. It's pretty critical. You know what I mean? That seems to be critical everywhere, even on the civilian side. Like, if you want to work in tech, you have to kind of like know how to talk and relate to tech people. Otherwise, you're going to be very lonely over there. you know. Um, but nothing profound, brother. That's it. You got to show up for yourself every day with the right shit and the right attitude, and you can accomplish anything. I really believe that.
All right. Well, last one, man. What were you afraid of then? As in, what were you afraid of when you were in the service, and what are you afraid of now?
Um, Dude, I have this like it's almost like a borderline fear of missing out. But basically everything I did, like I told you, I was in the CRIF for SIF or whatever. We were on, some sort of timer on an alert posture of some sort. I had to be within so many, minutes or hours of a call, basically. And I always kind of had that. And then later, when I was like a level 3 and stuff, like, there's like meetings. Like the worst thing you can do at the level 3 course is like be late, or basically being late to a meeting means you missed the meeting and you usually have a short window to do the meeting. And so, anyways, over time doing that work and everything, dude, I almost developed some generalized anxiety about like missing a meeting, and it's impacted me enough where, dude, like now I wake up in the middle of the night, like almost feeling like I was supposed to be somewhere, supposed to do something. Even now, like that feeling you have when you missed a meeting or whatever, you missed something important, like oh shit, I forgot to put that down. I still had that. I get that all the time, dude. Um,
That's pretty fucked up. I'm actually getting anxious now too. Oof.
yeah. But it's not just about a meeting or whatever. I'm just using that term. I just mean the generalized anxiety involved in that. You know what
Oh,
I
I
mean?
I get you. Yeah. Fuck.
Yeah.
I worry about like scheduling and stuff. Am I gonna miss a show with somebody? Is the time zone right and shit like that? And you get in your head about things. Yeah, I get that, man. Fuck.
But
Especially in
actually,
our,
what was the original question? I actually forgot it. Sorry.
what were you afraid of then, and what are you afraid of now?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm afraid of not being there when I need to be.
Yeah,
So I'm kind of like afraid to miss out. I don't mean FOMO in the traditional sense of like miss the party or whatever, even though that has played a role in my life as well. I mean more so of like not being in the right place at the right time, like with the right preparation to um, pursue your goals or catch that perfect opportunity that pops up, because they always do.
Yeah. And now, same thing.
Yeah. Sorry. What? And right now, yeah. Um, yeah, totally. Right now is one of those times. um, yeah, I think so, man. Um, not much more I can go on that. I've had, honestly, you're kind of right. This is like the first time I've done talking about, like, I've actually talked about some of this stuff in like a really long time. So
Yeah.
that's interesting for me. Yeah. Um, I kind of thought I would just come on and shoot the shit with an SF guy. Remember, we went enough time, like a Joe Rogan style podcast, where it's gone on long enough. I'm like, wow, I've really like went deep into some stuff. So yeah, my brain's kind of scrambled, brother.
Once you get past an hour, it's like, yeah, let's talk about some shit, you know? Let's
Yeah.
let's let's talk about how it really was and things like that. But you did great, man. Tell everybody that's listened this far how they can listen to your music and where they can find you.
Yeah, you can catch me on all major streaming platforms: Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon Music. Please check it out. We can send links, but honestly, the easiest thing is just to use the platform that you prefer, because it's on all of them. This
Yeah.
thing's out on over 47 platforms right now. We've had the album out for about 2 weeks, and I've had over 10,000 listens on all platforms worldwide. I don't know. That seems pretty cool. It's not a lot. I haven't even promoted it yet, so that's pretty cool, I think. And we're starting to get a good amount of subscribers on Spotify. If you use Spotify, please subscribe. If you use YouTube, please subscribe.
Okay, man. I'll talk to you some more about some other stuff after this. You got anything for me?
No, that's it, brother. Thanks for having me on the podcast. Hope y'all appreciated it.
Bye, everybody.